the Amalie Oil NHRA Gatornationals, it has felt just like that. When qualifying began on Friday, the racers were battling the clock. And on Saturday, sudden conditions brought a battle with Mother Nature. But on this race day Sunday, they will face themselves. The battle for elapsed time and win lights will define the beginning stanza of the 2025 NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series Tour. Champions like Antron Brawn, now a 4-time Top Fuel champion, will try to defend his title, and that title defense begins here. Austin Brock, who ran roughshod over the Nitro Funny Car category in 2024, finds himself in the precarious position of being qualified 15th. And Brittany Force, whose Monster Energy Top Fuel dragster began to show signs of life last year, has come fully back into the fold of performance here in Florida. We're ready to kick off the 2025 season. Are you?
These drivers are unlike any other group of race car drivers in the world. Some have decades of relentless championship experience.
It is Dallas Glenn out first. Greg Anderson is a 6-time champion. He wins by a measly 0.02 of a second.
While others carry less than a season of NHRA competition under their belt. And still others who have the championship skills and the charisma to draw fans from all over the world.
They spring up the starting line. He does it. Antron Brawn, a 4-time champion.
This team just outlasted the competition, and they took it.
You only get one chance to make a first impression. And today, as the 2025 NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series begins, in front of tens of thousands of fans at Gainesville Raceway, these speed warriors get the chance to define expectations for this year. For some, the first impression made last year was unforgettable.
He will pilot his car into the setting California sun to a 380 at 334 miles an hour.
That's what you call doing it in style. And for Austin Brock, his reward is a championship as a rookie.
And one young talent who began his career 3 years ago at this track with a victory has seemingly forgotten how to lose ever since.
Nhra, Clayton Howie across the racetrack. Champion 2 times over, Nhra.
What strong performance, and now they can celebrate.
The off-season has seen other changes in major ways. New teams have their first impressions to make. And in the case of the funny car class, a crew chief change with potentially seismic consequences for the competition. It's opening day, filled with the most horsepower, the undisputed fastest cars in the world. And it's the day to set the tone for the rest of 2025. The Amalie Oil NHRA Gatornationals and the start of year 74 of NHRA Drag Racing are next on FS1.
The fans are flooding into Gainesville Raceway under leaden skies on a Sunday that will define the 56th running of one of the most historic and prestigious races in the NHRA Drag Racing Series Tour. Welcome everybody into the broadcast booth here at Gainesville Raceway. Brian Lones and Tony Pendragon back to join you for another season of Mission Foods NHRA Drag Racing competition. Tony, we always say the clocks don't lie, the numbers don't lie, but 2 sessions of qualifying this weekend, we find great racers in the wrong positions. So, are the qualifying positions lying to me?
Well, the numbers never lie, but they don't always tell you everything that you need to know. We know all about Austin Brock, the defending series champion, but the matchup with Bob Tasca, if you go back to testing just within the last week, Bob Tasca has had the best car, and all of a sudden he has reemerged as a championship contender. So we have several of those big matchups due to the weather in Top Fuel, one big one in Funny Car, and we're going to kick off the season, well, in a big way.
In a huge way. Antron Brawn is looking to do what he did last year, which is to get things started in the right fashion here in Gainesville. He won the call-out race here last year, didn't win the Gatornationals, but did win a world championship.
The great ones find a way to win. The tree flashes it. The 75th victory for Antron Brawn's Hall of Fame career. They spring up the starting line. He does it. Antron Brawn, a 4-time champion.
Antron Brawn wrote himself a championship notebook, the likes of which he has dreamed about for several seasons now. 6 race round wins, 3 countdown event wins, but look at the #1 qualifiers as he enters eliminations today as the #1 qualifier, and it's race day. Amanda Busic's today as the #1 qualifier, and it's race day. Amanda Busic's going to speak to him now.
And here we are, a brand new season right here at the Gatornationals for the 2025 season, and that is your reigning Top Fuel champion looking for this many. Where are your sights set this season, Antron?
Our sights are set on the prize, and we know we got the bullseye on our back, and we just got to keep our head down, Amanda. These cars and these teams out here done their homework. Hopefully we did more homework, and we got the job a little bit better prepared, because that's what it's going to take to go out here and try to repeat, defend this championship title. And they're coming after it strong. There's a lot of teams that want it. They're doing the work to make it happen. But we're going to be there. We're going to give it everything we got and see what we can do.
Top Fuel dragsters are the quickest and fastest accelerating machines in the world. 0 to 100 miles per hour in well under 1 second, and will shake the ground under acceleration. Well over 11,000 horsepower, as well as over 11,000 plus pounds of torque. Powered by an all-American built, supercharged aluminum V8 engine that burns nitromethane for fuel, and lots of it. One run starts with a minimum of 18 gallons, and most tuners would hope to have no more than 2 gallons left in the tank after a 1,000-foot run.
Let's get a look at our starting lineups for round one eliminations in Top Fuel Eliminator in Gainesville. Brittany Force and Tony Stewart, as mentioned, great racers in weird positions in qualifying because of the 2 sessions in cold temps. How about Sean Langdon and Justin Ashley? A matchup we saw in Vegas last year that was pivotal to a championship run. Now we see Antron Brawn to take on underdog and fan favorite Krista Baldwin, who's the number 16 qualifier in this field. Doug Coletta and Ida Zetterstrom will battle in the first round. Zetterstrom back and trying to prove herself after a strong end of the season run. Trip Tatum and one of the big stories of the first round, Dan Mercier, who repaired his car in the pits overnight after suffering a tire failure during qualifying on Friday. We have Steve Torrance and Doug Foley. Torrance here, resurgent and trying to prove himself once again a championship contender. Sean Reed and Jasmine Salinas, a replay of the first round from Pomona at the finals when Salinas beat Reed on a hole shot. And finally, the first pair we'll see, Clay Milligan and Josh Hart, both men looking to get their season off on the right foot, but for somebody, it's going to end quick. And for the first time in 2025, the cackle of Top Fuel dragsters will fill the air on a Sunday morning, this time at the cavernous Gainesville Raceway, while the fans continue to stream in on this early start Sunday. As you can see, the skies are threatening, but the dragsters are even more than that, as Joe Barlam stands next to the Top Fuel dragster of Josh Hart, wearing a renewed look for the R&L Carriers Top Fuel dragster, a company he signed an extension with. And here comes Clay Milligan. Tony, Josh Hart's career began in Top Fuel with a Cinderella story weekend at his home racetrack here at Gainesville Raceway. He won the very first race he ever qualified for.
Well, for Josh Hart, things really started in a big way. It was almost all downhill from there. They had a very competitive car. Of course, you look back on last year, something happened with their setup, the way they were trying to approach their tune-up. He shuffled some personnel and brought some new people into this program. It made some improvements late last year, and it seems to be showing some good results to this point. Bruno
Massel, Happy New Year, buddy. You're down to the starting line.
Happy New Year, man, and it's good to smell the fumes of nitro once again. And for Josh Hart, it's all about hitting the reset button. He said that basically he put his crew chief at a disadvantage. They're a one-car team, and he was trying to do it on his own. He's talking about Ron Douglas. So he ended up giving him help, right? Brought in Joe Barlam, brought in Jason McCullough, 2 big industry experts to help him kind of brain trust and work as what he said, the 3 musketeers to lead them to throughout this season. Full confidence they have the ability to put them back over the top.
The 2 cars were all going to be a pedal fest to start with, and Clay Milligan's up by the center line. 436-283. Milligan, the 2024 used colors to round 2. Takes the parts plus colors to round 2.
Well, this is what you get when you have abbreviated qualifying. You have so different track conditions right now than what we saw in qualifying, and really the biggest difference is with the humidity. It's doubled water grains per square inch, and they have to fire a different amount of timing. They change the amount of timing, they change the amount of lockup weight. You can see, for starters, Clay Milligan shake the tires. There he is back in the throttle with a misfiring cylinder, and in this case it actually helps him because it allows the tire to square up, to regain traction, and he didn't have to get back in the throttle. You can see the car quit again just before the finish line. But for Josh Hart, it was overpowering the track. Unlike Clay Milligan that shook the tires, this just has too much wheel speed. You can see it right there, just smoothly going into a tire spin. He's off the throttle. A good experienced driver gets back on the throttle. He knows the imbalances. It gets the front end up. But at this stage, he can see too far, too much Clay Milligan out of his window. No need to pursue.
And so Clay Milligan advances in an adventuresome first-round matchup. John Force on the property this weekend, of course, overseeing the team, the Monster Energy Top Fuel Dragster. David Grubnick, John Collins have been doing a great job tuning this car, and if Brittany wins this weekend, or when she wins her next race, she will tie Shirley Muldowney in the all-time win list. And certainly racing, the great legend, the three-time NHRA champion, and certainly one of the most groundbreaking automobile racers of all time. And Brittany Force is on the precipice of tying Shirley on the all-time win list. We look at that 17 career wins for Brittany, 18 career national event victories for Shirley. A career that spanned the decades as Brittany Force brings her car into the water box against Tony Stewart. Right trailer's on board camera showing those giant Goodyear slicks growing, and here comes the direct connection top fueler of Tony Stewart. Who is in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the 2024 Rookie of the Year, is still waiting for his first win.
You almost have to disregard the fact that we called him a rookie. I mean, it was his first year in Top Fuel. There are a lot of things to learn in these machines. They perform and feel and accelerate so much differently than anything that he's ever driven. However, he is battle-born. This guy came with race experience. There's quite Leah watching on the starting line, but he's got his hands full, and I think for the drivers, they saw exactly what happened in front of them. They have to make the adjustment just like the tuner. Tuners have to adjust the car in hope that it gets down to the finish line under power. That's a perfect run, but the driver has to make an adjustment. In the event this car loses traction, they have to be ready.
Brittany smokes immediately, pitch sideways. Tony Stewart will record a first-round victory at 372.72.2, 329 miles an hour. And listen, that looks mighty stout when we've seen three cars smoke the tires already.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the conditions changing. It's an insane thing that happens that tuners, with rain threatening, they want to wait. They want to wait for the track temperature to come up. It's not always going to be perfect. The tuners have to make the adjustment, adjust the engine, adjust the clutch. If you don't do it, this is what happens. You can see Brittany Force, her car just loses traction instantly. There's not a lot of that a driver can do, especially when Tony Stewart. Now, they made the right adjustments. They were a little more conservative. They didn't sock it to it.
They kept all 8 cylinders lit too.
All 8 cylinders, and with the kind of humidity, they made all the right adjustments. And more than likely, they had a lot of good data, but this is just called hitting your marks in terms of the tune-up. And of course, the driver did his job, keeping the car centered in the racetrack.
The fresh look for the direct connection Top Fuel Dragster. Fired up is Leah Pruitt. She's going to go back to the pits and give Dominic, their new son, a squeeze as the crew will service the engine for the first time in 2025. When we come back, the defending world champion, Antron Brawn, who is lurking in the staging lanes of that Matco Tools Top Fueler, will be lined up on the starting line to take on underdog Krista Baldwin. When we return, speed never lies. He's been 337 miles an hour.
Get ready to race down the track with Mission Foods. It's a green light for the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series, packed with fast action and tasty products. Fully loaded tacos, fast wraps, piled high nachos. Whatever you crave, Mission will help you be race ready with easy-to-make recipes that will take your race day to the finish line. Keep your racing delicious and enjoy all the mouth-watering action. Brought to you by Mission Foods. Too fast, too tasty.
Who is Amalie Motor Oil? In all 50 states, in over 100 countries, for more than 100 years, we've kept the gears, the pistons firing, and the machinery moving. We're the largest family-owned, privately held manufacturer of superior quality motor oils and industrial lubricants in North America. That's Amalie Motor Oil. Better than it has to be since 1903.
Coleman RVs are the most affordable campers in America and sold exclusively at Camping World, which is why we've sold over 1 million RVs. The best part, America's #1 selling travel trailer is now more affordable than ever, starting at an unbelievable $99.99, with a wide range of floor plans that sleep up to 8, plenty of high-end amenities, and lightweight enough to be towed by your van or SUV. It's no wonder Coleman is America's favorite RV. Get yours starting at just $92 per month, only at Camping World.
Your new bike is officially protected by America's #1 motorcycle insurer. We can now safely go wherever the wind takes us.
That's right.
It was one of those books that smelled bad, but in a good way, you know? No, man. Oh.
Didn't think this through, did you?
No? You go without me. The owner and I aren't on speaking terms. Apparently the refills are limited.
Okay.
It's not okay.
You want high-performance, long-lasting, affordable tools. You want Harbor Freight tools. Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight. Save even more at our parking lot sale going on now.
Trains. Trains that use the power of Dell AI and Intel, clearing the way so you arrive exactly where you belong.
The Amalie Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals is sponsored by Mission Foods. Now that's too fast, too tasty. And by Amalie. Better than it has to be since 1903.
Good job.
Teeth, that Gator has plenty of them. So does this. Track, but you have to be able to navigate it, much like you don't want to stick your arm in that guy's mouth. You don't want to smoke the tires off the starting line, but so far the number 8 and 11 qualifiers have advanced. Milligan pedaled his way there, but Tony Stewart's 3.722-second shot seems to be highly impressive. Before Sean Langdon and Justin Ashley pulled into the water box, there was a lane change. The Coletta Air Top Fuel drag strip was on the left-hand side of the drag strip, and the crew chief made the decision to move to the opposite side. Of course, Brian Houston tunes this race car. Oh boy, we're going to go pedaling again, and he's going to run around the outside of him. Langdon goes a 5:02 at 235 miles an hour. Tony, it looked like Sean Langdon was doomed twice in that run.
Well, that's patience. That's the discipline of a driver. I think Justin Ashley gave it a good shot, and there's a good chance that his car just lost power, but his car got in trouble farther out, so he had the better momentum. Take a look at Sean. His car just loses traction early, and you can see Justin appeared to be on his way to victory, but the car looks like the car just didn't cooperate. And here's Sean, but there's the tire shake. He knows it's lost traction. He can hear, he can see that Justin isn't out front of him. He's having problems. He's feathering the throttle. He's a smart driver. He can feel the car. He knows if he goes wide open throttle, it's just going to lose traction. The wheel speed hasn't slowed down. Take a look on the right side at Justin Ashley. There he is, losing traction. Very nice job getting back in the throttle. It's regained traction. However, it's misfiring cylinders. There's a good chance that the way the tuner had this car set up wasn't on pedal mode. So when he gets back in the throttle, it's shooting ducks. It's misfiring cylinders. You have to lean, as a tuner, you have to lean the car out at that stage. If it has too much fuel, this is what happens. You allow your opponent to drive around you.
Coletta pedaled a tire smoker to a victory. Brittany Forrest did not. She met up with Amanda.
Well, what started as a record-setting weekend for Brittany Forrest will come to a close here in round number 1 in Gainesville. What could you have done differently, Brittany?
Right now the track is really tricky. We didn't get on it yesterday because of rain, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that. We didn't get down there. I tried to pedal it off the wall. It moved around quite a bit, and Stewart was way out ahead. There was no catching him. You know, this Monster Energy team, we wanted to start strong, but we'll head to the next one. Phoenix.
We are back to the starting line. The main line sails Red Line Oil. Greekette, Krista Baldwin backing her car up. Her grandfather, Krista Greek Karamessinas, who's verging on 100 years old, was out here this weekend as part of the Don Garlits International Drag Racing Hall of Fame ceremony on Thursday evening. But for the other side of the racetrack, it is the defending Top Fuel and four-time champion Antron Brawn.
Show their range and show their versatility.
They both have the pedal, and Antron's going to gather it up like a world champion does. 466 at 253 miles an hour. This round of attrition continues. A 524 at 183 for Krista Baldwin, but Antron Brawn showing that he is quick on the pedals.
Well, taking no prisoners, a good one, but this is experience. But this, you can see that Antron Brawn was ready for anything you would have thrown at him. His car shook. It had cylinders out, and this is almost a carbon copy of what happened to Justin Ashley's car. However, you can see for Antron Brawn, however the tuner had this car set up, however he had the feature in the computer, the control module, you can see it's going to leave the starting line. Take a look at those rear tires. There they are. They're starting to shake. They're sticking. Not enough wheel speed. One misfire, two misfires. He's not wide open throttle. There he starts to open those blades. He knows that as long as his car continues to run, he should get to that finish line. And you can see the humidity for Krista. She gave it an effort, but a lot of experience she's competing against.
The most shocked man on the property right now, Clay Milliken. He'll have lane choice over Antron Brawn in the second round as Tony Stewart's team, for the first time this season, will descend an area. And his team, for the first time this season, will descend upon that dragster and dig. And so for Tony Stewart, that is a nice way for him to start the season, both as a driver and as that team kind of huddle up he talked about. They had an approach that was effective and effective enough to allow him to pedal to a victory. Rapidly returning to the starting line, Ida Zetterstrom on the top of your screen. Tony, look at this drag strip as we look down from the right trailer's drone.
Well, there's not very much rubber, and that's surprising because, you know, the crew chiefs were up there. They, for the most part, tell the track prep officials what they want, what they don't want. There is a traction compound on top of it, but, you know, I guess the lesser of two, you can see that they're both to the outside. You see Doug Coletta right now, he's lined up where there is more rubber, but you have more rubber, it could potentially peel up because of the rain over the last 24 hours.
Ida Zetterstrom is set to begin her second season of NHRA competition, the second with that man, John Schaefer, as her crew chief. The chase as another lane swap's about to take place at the starting line.
Well, you ever wonder what it's like try walking in the kitchen when there's butter on the floor. This is what Ida had to deal with. And for Doug Coletta, I wish we could pay the royalty. Wasn't there a song that said nobody does it better? Here's the launch, wide open throttle for Ida. It's getting all the air into the engine. You can see that she instantly closes it because there is no acceleration. She doesn't want to over rev the engine. And getting on the throttle too quick, it does exactly what we talked about, that some of the drivers have done so well. They allow that rear tire, the wheel speed to slow down enough, settle a chassis.
So weekend long. When we come back, this absolute minefield of a drag strip will present more challenges to our next set of top fuelers.
I'm looking for somebody to be all in on this life.
I'm here to find love.
I'm DTF. Down to farm.
5, 6, 7, 8.
I'm definitely gonna kiss her.
I'm both country and class.
I am ready to fall in love again.
He's hot, y'all.
Matt did not kiss me.
Farmer Wants Premiere, Thursday, March 20th on Fox.
When you've shown dogs at Westminster Dog Show as long as we have,
People always ask for pet tips.
wow. It's game time and the shot clock is running down on Subway's $6.99 foot-long deal. Fresh sliced deli meat, fresh crispy veggies. Too much good stuff. Order now in the Subway app. Use code 699FL now. Deals only here until March 13th.
Plan that states your wishes if you died, and it actually counts. Slugbug, get started at trustandwill.com and make it count.
Hi everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, we have legal professionals standing by to let you know how much your case is potentially worth. I'm here with TV personality and spokesman Tom Mustin. So Tom, tell the viewers at home, who should call right now?
Well, Gina, anyone who's been injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person and find out how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. You heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity. Call now.
A look here at Bernie's Speed Shop. They had their open house, one of the many events that surround these annually oiled Gatornationals. Thousands of NHRA fans went to Bernie's Speed Shop. This is Josh Hart's business. Dozens of drivers, hundreds of hot rods, and Josh Hart's business is acres and acres under one roof. It is a massive specialty car and high-performance shop. From Edith Zetterstrom to Don Garlitz, they were all signing autographs.
That's a legend right there, Don Garlitz. If you ever get a chance to get off the exit in Ocala and take a look at his museum, it's amazing.
Dan Mercier is on the starting line against all odds. His car went down the drag strip on Friday and exploded a rear tire. We thought he was done for. But over the last 2 days, he was helped by the rain. He was able to get his car repaired in the pit area. Let's watch this.
It's a good run, good acceleration. The car's moving around. There was something that reflected off the starting line. There's a good chance that there was some debris that punctured that tire. Fortunately, it did some damage, but he's here.
The NHRA Tech Department went and looked the car over. They gave them a set of guidelines of how it needed to be repaired. They got the materials, they got the fabricators, and this car, against all odds, is on the starting line against another guy who knows what it's like to be a long oddsman, and that is, of course, Trip Tatum, who won this race just a couple of years ago. His first and only career victory. Tatum has qualified number 2, tying Antron Brawn as the quickest car of the weekend. But as we've seen so far in the first round, that matters not. Oh no, Tatum sideways and he crashes into the wall. The car skids across the drag strip, noses its way to the right-hand side of the concrete, and Dan Mercier goes to the end of the racetrack as Tatum's car continues to slide guidelessly down the racetrack. Tatum is moving inside of the cockpit.
Well, the perils of the conditions, but the perils of how a driver needs to approach these conditions. You can see a lot of cars spinning, shaking the tires. Fortunately for Trip Tatum, he's getting out of the car under his own power. You can see Bobby Lagana, the tuner for Steve Torrance. who's had a lot of input with this car, but this is good news. He's out of the car. Those driver, fortunately for Trip Tatum, when you look at him, you can see that physically this guy is fit. There's a lot of damage to the car, and we'll take another look at it, but it shook the tires. He got back in the throttle. The car was still in a loss of traction state, and these longer wheelbase cars, when they start to come around, you don't have a lot of room just because of the length of the chassis.
A heartbreaking situation here for Tatum. He is a part-time team, has very, very nice equipment, and it's just, you hate the trailer's drone looks down, we watch again. The right trailer's drone looks down, we watch again.
Under acceleration there, he can feel it shake. He makes the adjustment. Mistake came when the rear tires were still losing traction. The driver has to be very, very careful, and experience comes in handy. When you get back on that throttle and those rear tires are still slipping and still spinning, it puts the amount of torque and the rotation of the engine and the way the car's positioned. The car has to be positioned straight if you're going to get back in the throttle.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and you just run out of space. I mean, each of these lanes are 60 feet wide. You get one of these cars slightly sideways, let alone under acceleration. Unfortunately, there, the chassis absorbed a lot of the energy. So I'm sure he's going to have some aches that are going to come from the first impact, not necessarily the second one.
It is similar to what we saw happen to Brittany Force years ago, as the frustration just comes out of Trip Tatum as he climbs out of his race car. Thankfully, he did climb out of his race car. Very similar to situations we've seen. Mike Salinas had his car up on two wheels at Pomona a couple years ago, and the same thing. If it's just a couple of degrees out of orientation, it becomes a very tough situation.
Well, a run always starts with how the tuner has the car set up. You see it shake. The car's not positioned straight forward, and he gets back on the throttle. I'm sure that Trip's going to get out of the car and realize exactly what happened, but there's the impact. And it happens so quick. When it happens so early in the run, it surprises the driver. The driver's expectations are the car's going to squat, distribute the weight to the rear tire, it's going to accelerate. You have to mentally be prepared and be ready for all those things. And when it doesn't happen, you have to make a quick adjustment. And all this happens within a couple of seconds.
And for Tatum, you can see he's intact. Bruno Massel's with him. Disappointing circumstances here for Trip Tatum, former Gator Nationals winner. Trip, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. And the story is just horrible driver error. It shook. I tried pedaling it and just overdrove it. End of story. Now I got to go fix this thing, so it's going to be expensive.
Hate it for you, brother.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'll be back. It's a lot to take in right now. My whole life is to do this, and it just sucks.
So Trip Tatum has a long road ahead to get that car put back together the way he wants it, as we now see a car being disassembled in the pit area on plan for Antron, Brawn, and his team as they go to work for the first time this season.
Well, this is a very efficient team to win a championship, and however, they are missing one of their key components, Mark Oswald, who's been with this team for so many years, and Antron Brawn, a slightly different business model than most. Very loyal. They went through good times. They went through some turmoil, rather through some tough times with the car where it wasn't as competitive as they wanted. He stuck with that core group, and it yielded a championship. However, the tuners are in their room figuring out how to attack this racetrack.
Amanda's with Antron.
Antron, Tony Pedregon said that you would have been ready for anything on that run. How quickly do your instincts take over?
You have to. The main thing is being patient. I saw the other good cars in front of us doing the same thing, and when I did a burnout, you could look down, see the ball on the track, and boy, I tell you what, I say, oh Lord, Krista, she goes right down the track, pop us off, and then I felt that deal, and I was really patient getting back on the pedal. It wasn't me. That was a little Jerome in the house doing that pedal job, so he got us through. And man, I tell you what, we're off to the next round, and we'll try to make it better for sure.
Who is Jerome?
Jerome, you ain't see Jerome? Jerome, that's my alter ego. You guys see him. He's gonna come out every once in a while, but he was driving that thing.
Jerome has been driving the Promont over the wintertime, and now he has transitioned to Top Fuel. We got to look at the packed grandstands here. These fans braving some hairy conditions on this Sunday at Gainesville Raceway, but they are getting a good show here in Tough Pedaling, some tires shaking, of course, the Trip Tatum situation. Doug Foley, left side of your screen, taking on a four-time champion of the world of Kilgore, Texas. That, of course, is Steve Torrance, and Bruno has more.
All right, Brian, it's up. The fog is thick down here. I'm not going to kid you. Got a tear or two in my eye, which is a good sign we're back to racing, but proceed
Torrance and his team. Watch the way this car is backed up. Richard Hogan told me that they're going to try and put the car towards the center of the lane. I'm sorry, to the right side of the lane. They feel that's the best chance of getting down. That the trouble is for the first few hundred feet, the back tires get past the tree, they'll be in good shape. Now, they said the work that NHRA did on the track during the downtime helped, but it's still not fully recovered. It's going to be a tricky track surface we're dealing with right here. If you get the back tires past the tree, you've got a shot.
And there is no form of racing. You look at NASCAR, they have to make adjustments when the grip's not as good. IndyCar, it's all about the setup. The tuners have their work cut out for them, but we already saw one car, Tony Stewart's car, negotiate, was the right lane, but it's all about the setup of these machines.
Torrance's car flipping the ball. Foley's giving him all he can handle. Finish line stripe, it is Torrance. Wow, that was a nail biter. A 374.9 beats a 375.7. The best side we've seen all day.
Well, that's a magic number right there. They weren't getting too greedy. You have this cloud cover. You have the good atmospheric conditions. The density altitude is off the charts. And these tuners made the proper adjustments. You cannot target a 360 like they typically could when they were testing, when the track conditions were different. So they made the right adjustments, both of them. You have to give them a lot of credit. And both drivers on their mark. It was Steve Torrance. This could have easily gone the other way. That's how close these cars were matched. But you can see him start to the inside like a good driver. He starts to allow it to come back into the center of the lane where the good rubber is. And right at the tail end, you can see for Doug Foley, his car gave up. I don't think he was going to close that gap on Steve Torrance.
So Torrance advances. Let's talk about the Play NHRA initiative. Kicked off last year in Bristol, has been growing like a weed ever since. You can hit the flow code on your screen, and we're going to talk about the odds this weekend. Of course, you can get involved with Play NHRA. That flow code is going to take you to your available options in your particular state or part of the country. The Gainesville winner odds this weekend for Top Fuel, the four most interesting: Antron, Brawn, Doug Coletta, Steve Torrance, and Sean Reed. Tony, I'm not a bet man on drag racing, but Steve Torrance at plus 745 seems like good money.
Steve's always a good bet. You just don't know what Steve is going to show up, and he had some off time. This could be the Steve Torrance that won all those championships. You can never count him out. He's always a good bet.
Sean Reed, the Reed of trucking and excavating Top Fuel dragster, making its way back to the starting line. Reed won the preseason race at Bradenton, Florida this year. It was the biggest accomplishment so far for his team, and a sure sign that both he, Rob Lindland, Ryan Elliott, and the entire organization have been gelling together. We saw the car get better at the end of last year. For Jasmine Salinas, she's trying to do the same thing she did to Sean Reed at Pomona, California, which is dispatch him with a whole shot.
That's something that Sean Reed isn't going to forget anytime soon. So he has to be sharp. He can look over in the other lane while he qualified very well. Jasmine Salinas, it seems like they made a layup run. They just were very cautious. They wanted to get the car in the show. If you look at their qualifying number, I don't think Sean Reed can push as hard as they did when they ran their qualifying number. However, for Jasmine, if they can stay on course, they've got a shot.
Salinas' car pushed to the inside. Reed smokes the tires. Jasmine gets to the finish line. Another 75, 3.753 at 330 miles an hour. Jasmine Salinas was off the blocks first by a foul. Neither of them braggable reaction time.
When the track conditions become treacherous, when it's not good, it's not always going to be perfect. The tuners have to change their target. These tuners have done a good job. There was a delay. The temperature came up. They reconditioned the racetrack. Sean Reed very well in this race, but it looked like his tires just started to slip a little farther down the racetrack than we typically see.
Early after being thwarted in round one, Amanda Busick talked to Ida Zetterstrom.
Well, off camera, Ida's been taking in this moment, saying that she's had the worst weekend and pretty disgusted with your reaction time as well. But on that run, what's your assessment of what happened?
Oh, it's horrible when you feel like you can't be there. You know, like I stepped on the throttle and nothing happened. You just felt like it was instantly, you know, just couldn't get down track. I tried to pedal it and I had no pedal, and you know, you see dog basically going past you, and I feel like I'm not the driver that I that I know I can be on the tree, and I've been working on that this weekend. But with this few amount of runs we've had, it hasn't given a lot of time to kind of try all the new things we have on the car. So I'm looking forward to get more runs down track. I know this JCM team is way better than this, and I'm a better driver, and we're gonna come back, and we'll come back swinging.
And so we see Josh Hart's car returning to the pit area. The FlexJet pit cam, the R&L Carriers Top Fuel team will roll their car back in. Does not move to round 2, but they will go through their service and prepare the car for Phoenix, Arizona. The round 2 Top Fuel ladder: Clay Milligan, lane choice over Brawn, Steve Torrance over Coletta, Jasmine Salinas over Dan Mercier. That's a fascinating matchup. And Tony Stewart will take on Sean Langdon. When we come back, we will see the Nitro Funny Cars, and that will include this man, the fastest racing driver in NHRA and American motorsports history, Austin Prock.
One of the main reasons for poor vehicle performance is a dirty fuel system. It can cause decreased fuel economy and actually do harm to your engine over time. By adding Lucas Fuel Treatment to your vehicle, it cleans and lubricates the entire fuel system. Pump, carburetors, fuel injectors, and valves as you drive. It also improves your vehicle's performance. It's a non-solvent product designed to protect both gasoline and diesel engines. Lucas Fuel Treatment. It works.
Fire Department Coffee has something pretty cool to tell you.
We're officially in Walmart!
And not just this Walmart in our hometown of Rockford, Illinois. We're also in these stores nationwide too. So the next time you're craving a simple, delicious coffee that'll give you the caffeinated motivation to get through the day.
And also gives back to sick and injured first responders.
Stop by your local Walmart and grab a bag or pod of Fire Department coffee.
Today!
When your 365 days depend on, here's the pudding. Afford to not plant with Fendt. Want proof? Here's the pudding. More power with less engine revs for tilling that fits the billing. Then there's the momentum with the industry's most efficient seed placement and a floating toolbar with higher vertical range than the high school basketball team. Round it out with the 2-height year-round Fendt Rogator featuring liquid logic, and your numbers will be doing numbers. That's Fendt. That's growing bold.
Thinking of updating my kitchen? Yeah? Yes. This year, we are finally updating our kitchen, doing subway tile and an ivory or eggshell. Cream, maybe bone. Don't get me started on quartz. Big island. You ever heard of a waterfall counter?
For everyone who talks about doing that thing,
over there,
but never does that thing,
sweet little breakfast nook.
Chase has financial guidance.
See how you can start saving to make this happen.
Really?
Really.
At home or in
You
person.
could also check out a Chase Money Skills workshop.
That's guidance from Chase. Make more of what's yours.
Fine grilled chicken breast strips in the freezer aisle. Tyson.
Let's talk salary.
Great. What do you typically offer for this role?
It's competitive.
And if it was a number, it would be...
A competitive number. With Indeed, you can avoid awkward salary conversations from the start.
Well, a number.
Is it competitive?
This is a Big East tournament, folks! A champion will be crowned.
The crowd is ready. The Big East Tournament, March 13th through the 15th on Fox and FS1.
The Cornwell Quality Tools camera showing the fastest car in the history of drag racing and the fastest car in the history of American motorsports. It is Austin Prock's Chevrolet Camaro Funny Car, Tony, and I need to know more about it.
This is the second of our professional classes that burn nitro methane for fuel. The power comes from the same 500 cubic inch engine as its top fuel cousin, only a much shorter 10-foot wheelbase that makes this high horsepower car very hard to manage and even challenging for the driver to see down the racetrack once that body is lowered. Aerodynamically superior to a top fuel dragster, as we have seen an official top speed in excess of 341 miles per hour.
A rookie season unlike any other in Nitro Funny Car history. It was dominating. It was unstoppable. And for Austin Prock, it was a championship run.
The Prock family is the most intimidating group. I mean, these guys are just beating people hollow out here. They're just so dominant. Austin Prock wins for the first time. The tree flashes and they lead. Prock is driving away. Austin Prock is now 188 points ahead of the field.
bulging and throat roaring, Austin Prock hoisted that Mission Foods Championship trophy at the end of a dream season. His first career Funny Car Championship, 8 wins, 15 number 1 qualifiers, 53 round wins. His dream season was everyone else's nightmare, and it just didn't stop until Pomona.
He starts his title defense in 2025. Qualifying didn't go as planned, but an opportunity to really turn things. Qualifying didn't go as planned, but an opportunity to really turn things around against a tough round 1 opponent. What do you guys have to do to have success today?
Well, we just need to, race our race. We, if we can knock Task out, fine and kind of put us behind the 8 ball. But, if we can knock Task out, essentially we're number 2 qualifier. So last year we had 15 number 1s. This year we're starting out 15th. But I'm looking forward to it. Love these big first round matchups. And if this Proc Rocket gets past the tree, watch out.
And now let's check our starting lineup here for round 1 eliminations in Nitro Funny Car. Paul Lee and Chad Green, the 4 and 13 qualifiers. Remember, it's this weekend because of the rain. Bob and Brock, a clash of the 340-mile-an-hour Titans in round number 1 under these cloudy skies. Ron Capps and the decided underdog John Smith will be battling next to each other to start their Sunday. Jack Beckman and Blake Alexander. New car, new season, new everything. Alexander made 1 half-track pass, and he comes in to try to catch Beckman. Bobby Bodie and J.R. Todd, a unique matchup here. Todd, of course, with the new crew chief and Dickie Venables. Bodie in the new ride with Del Worship. Alexis DeJoria will battle against Terry Haddock, the number 10 qualifier. DeJoria, her new team with JCM Racing. And then we have Cruz Pedregon and Matt Hagan side by side, the 8th and 9th pairing. The multi-time champions are battling it out. And the first pair down the drag strip will be Daniel Wilkerson and Buddy Hull of Texas. And the True Brand Dodge is cackling away next to the Skag Shackle Nitro Funny Car Ford of Dan Wilkerson. This Buddy Hull wearing the colors this year of True Brand and Fuel Jewels. There is John down there. Richard Hartman guiding the injector blades in the front of Daniel Wilkerson's car.
Well, there's no question that Dan Wilkerson has the better car. He had the better car towards the end of last year. Buddy Hull, it just seems like if they play it safe, play it smart, try to do what they did in qualifying, maybe bump up the performance the slightest amount.
Buddy Hull's motoring. Dan Wilkerson at a pedal, and it's going to be Buddy Hull. 404.8 at 313 miles an hour. That was a study in consistency. They got the car to the finish line.
Oh, Jim Dunn, he has seen these movies over and over again. That's why he set this car up 100th quicker than anything they did in qualifying, and that's all it takes. When the conditions change, sometimes a higher qualified car is no longer the favorite. You can see early in the run now Dan Wilkerson did a nice job, and you can see what he does with the throttle blades. He closes them when he opens them back up, not full throttle. So a very nice job getting the car to recover. A lot of drivers would not have been able to do that. However, for Buddy Hull, flawless run.
So Buddy Hull advances to round number 2. Let's check in with Ron Capps, who's wearing the Carlisle colors this weekend on the in-car radio. Hey, Ron.
Start of the session, track temperature was 70 degrees. It seems like it's no longer sketchy, stabilized. Does that allow you guys to stay on course with?
Back to pit here, and actually Guido made a huge. Yeah, Tony, we went back to pit here, and actually Guido made a huge change. Put different head gaskets on it. Yeah, so many different things had to be changed this amount of time. But that's what I love about Guido. It's Napa know-how. You hear me brag on it. You have to be able to turn and adapt. And today, I don't think we've seen such huge swings in track temp and the humidity and the air outside. So I'm glad to have Guido right now.
All the best to you. Let's hope it sticks.
Yeah.
We go from the quiet cockpit of Ron's car, the staging lanes, to the cackling starting line with Paul Lee, the FTI converters and transmissions, McLeod clutches, Silver Sport transmissions, Dodge, and across the racetrack, the Bronco Ford Mustang of Chad Green. Lee, the better qualified car. Lee smokes the tires instantly, and Chad Green is motoring to the finish line at 395 at 324 miles an hour. Seems like a sporty tune-up for this time of the day, and certainly this racetrack.
Yeah, Chad Green is a lot better than what their qualifying position indicated for us. We know how good this car can run. They just didn't get it in qualifying first run. Fortunately, getting them in the show, but you can see how stable this was, how safe it was, how safe it looked. The tires aren't spinning, they're not smoking, the cylinders aren't. They had a good setup, and it almost looks like it's very safe, somewhat conservative.
The weather today has certainly taken a turn from the cool and damp to now the warm and sunny. The racetrack temperature, which was raced basically 70 degrees at the start of Top Fuel this morning, has risen to 92 under skies that are far less threatening than they were earlier. It is a comfortable 71 degrees. The density altitude is a good horsepower, making 1,177 feet. And we will see when we come back the two fast in a Chevrolet and Bob Tasca, of course, in a Ford. Bob Tasca, of course, in a Ford.
Who is Amalie Motor Oil? In all 50 states, in over 100 countries, for more than 100 years, we've kept the gears turning, the pistons firing, and the machinery moving. We're the largest family-owned, privately held manufacturer of superior quality motor oils and industrial lubricants in North America. That's Amalie Motor Oil. Better than it has to be since 1903.
The thrill of the race, every step. Right Trailers knows you're not just transporting your ride, you're transporting your dreams. We build more than just trailers. We fuel your passion. From race trailers to renegade RVs, we have the perfect solution for every racer. At Right Trailers, we support the NHRA, junior drag racers, and the future of motorsports. Experience the right time.
Spruce, the new, hard-working, worry-free
shows what has been a wacky day so far continues in Funny Car. The number 12 and 13 qualifiers have thumped number 4 and 5 on the sheet. And we got two big ones on the starting line now. The number 2 and 15 qualified cars. Austin Prock, the defending world champion, the Cornwell Quality Tools Chevrolet Camaro. They blew up a rear axle during their qualifying runs and then smoked the tires. Bob Tasca III, as we look down for the Right Trailers drone, in the PPG Ford Mustang qualified second, and Tasca did so with a stout 383.3. I don't believe there's a 383 out there right now, but Bob Tasca III, how quick should he push himself to take out Prock?
I think that's going to be the chess match with both these teams, both these two in particular, how they're setting their car up. They're going to pick a target if they think that they need to run an 89 or a 390. They're going to adjust the engine power. They're going to manipulate the timing. They can do that electronically throughout the course of the run. But I think that's what's going to be interesting for Tasca. He had to see a car traction right off the starting line. I'm sure they're going to reposition that car out of those tracks they saw from Pauline.
Tato Gahara stands in front of the PPG Mustang as Jimmy Prock, as he did all season long, last year at a championship level now, tweaks the injector and steps to the back of the car. The biggest matchup of round one. And it's Austin Prock smoking the tires first. Bob Tasca wags the tail and oh man, twice he does it. 516 and 209. Don't tell me he didn't want that one bad. We saw both sides of the PPG car. He goes 516 for the win.
Well, they're both, you talk about car control, throttle control. That was what Bob Tasca put on display with this PPG machine, and it is the car to manage the throttle, to maintenance the throttle. The farther down the racetrack is for Austin Prock, his dad Jimmy Prock, that sets this car up. They just missed it. They knew they had to be aggressive. You pull back too much, you run the risk of getting outrun. Nobody's ego wants to deal with that. For Tasca, they were able to get off the starting line. You can see how many times they're here, how many times he's off and on the throttle. Take a listen.
The second time it threw the whole car off the ground. That car, I believe, had all four wheels off the ground. The second time he stood on the gas. Watch this.
Take a look. He's trying to get those rear tires dried up. He does not know where his opponent's at. He is straightening the car out, and he slowly gets in it. Yeah, it bunny hops. It's a combination of the tires dried up. He did do a good job getting the wheel speed to slow down, and you've got clutch application. You have the clutch going 1-to-1, so you have all that power kicking in. But again, we're talking about an 11,000 or more than that horsepower machine, and you have a driver that's trying to wrangle and try to manage all of that power. So a good job, a little bit of a wild ride, but again, instincts kick in. He does not know that Austin Prock is having similar problems that's going to come smoking by him. Not the case here.
Chaos continues to reign supreme at Gainesville Raceway as John Bodie Smith and Ron Capps are fired up side by side. Of course, the Smith family, born and bred underdogs since the 1970s. They've been doing this for generations as the patriarch of the family. Walks ahead of the car. We sit at Ron Capps' Carlisle Toyota. The body comes down around Ron. Yeah, let's go burnout. It sounds like a bizarre question. I'm going to put it to you anyway, Tony. Is a car like John Smith's perhaps in a more advantageous position? It can't go 380s like Ron Capps' car is. This thing is a 4.0 car all day long. This seems like 4.0 weather can make you successful.
Well, Jim Dunn's car is already in the second round, so that should answer the question. However, you look at the history of Ron Capps. He and I raced a lot in the late 90s, the mid-2000s, and early 2000s. If you really go back to his tuner, that's Dean Antonelli that's going to reach under. He's going to look at the digital display. He's going to turn a screw in to adjust the idle. But he has a lot of experience with John Force Racing, a lot of match racing, so he knows how to navigate a marginal track like this. Let's go down to Bruno.
Talking with Dean Antonelli this morning, Tony, and he told me that after the Vegas race last year, he stayed over on Monday, did some testing, and he did something he's been wanting to do for a long time, went a completely different direction with the clutch, and it paid dividends. He said, sometimes this stuff just works, and you don't know how and why, and it works. So he's carried that tune up to Pomona and brought it here, and he said the tuning window he's got is really opened up, and he's going to need that here today.
At 325 miles an hour. Lived up to everything Bruno just said. It really did.
Well, you draw it up, and, it made sense, and it almost seems like the escape hatch for that car may have, I didn't see it fall off during the course of the run. It left
the chat. It left the chat.
We're going to take another look to figure out when it did. You could see that hinge right there. It just started to tear that out. There's the car approaching the 1,000-foot mark right there. You can see it. And it's never latched. They do want it loose, but it starts to buff it. And it seems like the hinges just weren't going to hear about the amount of stress that it put on it. And they want to keep it unfastened to allow some of the air to escape.
Amanda Busick.
Yeah, and Brian, it was over 3 for our reigning champion funny car here in Gainesville this weekend. And you said there were other issues on that run just there. What was it?
Well, the thing blew him off at the hit. Everybody's been struggling, and I was really confident going up there, but it smoked the tires, and then the throttle disconnected, and I had no hope. So, just aggravating. It's definitely a weekend to forget. You don't want to come out the first race of the year and have a performance like this, but it's exploding. The thing was bad luck. With the rear end exploding, the thing was flying, and that would have really set us up to have a much better weekend. But really frustrating. Hate to come out here for the first weekend as the reigning duels. We just signed a 3-year contract, and we had a horrific weekend. So we'll regroup. I know the performance is there. We had a great test session in Bradenton. The thing was flying. We ran 379 and 125-inch wheelbase. So the race car's there. We just had a terrible weekend, and hopefully we don't have any more of these this year.
A year ago, it didn't go so great for him at this race either. And then they went out, of course, to Phoenix, Arizona, and took care of business. As you can see the hinge in the flapless Carlisle Toyota. But the Chevrolet here, this Peak Performance Blue Def Chevrolet of Jack Beckman is fully roof hatch equipped. He has next to it Blake Alexander, the Prado Auto Service Center Dodge. No longer with Jim Head. He struck off. He got connected with Chad Green. So these two cars are run under the Chad Green Racing umbrella. He got Matt Bynum as a crew chief. They got this thing together. He made one basically squirt of a test pass or a qualifying pass, and now he's into eliminations.
and it was good enough. It wasn't a full run, but it gave them some data. Everything's still new, but there's no reason with the amount of experience that's on this car, they can't set it up to be competitive. However, you talk about Austin Prock, this car has been more consistent. This weekend, it is the car to beat. They were the #1 qualifier after the first session, #1 qualifier after the second session. So not only are they quick and fast, but they're consistent.
So Jack Beckman, the body coming down. He has seen, as everybody else in this property has seen, a path open up for him with the dispatch of Austin Prock in the first round. That is Matt Bynum ahead of the car. Young guy's been around this stuff a long time. Won races in Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car Racing, worked with Del Worship for years. Jack Green is advanced. But man, this is a tall order for Blake Alexander.
Alexander, it appeared that the door swung open. There he is shaking, but it looks like his throttle disconnected. So let's get a listen to Bruno.
With this week's Cornwell Quality Tools Crew Chief Confidential. Down here with Chris Cunningham. Chris, you've had the dominant car here this weekend. It almost puts you on edge with what we've seen out here today. How do you back it down enough where you don't back it down too far and get down through that round?
Well, the one thing you got to do is make sure that you don't blow the tires off of the step. If it goes out there and shakes, he can pedal it like he did and save.
Over in Langdon and said, well, Bobby came over in Langdon and said, I've got something to say. What is it?
Yeah, so I should be talking about that run right now, but really for me, I got to call out Fox Sports. You know, all winter long we heard about the fastest motorsports on the planet, and I was a little confused because I didn't see that PPG Mustang when I saw that ad, and I didn't see that Proc car over there, and the truth is, it's an insult to our fans and to the drivers for Fox to go on TV and say the fastest motorsports in the world, and it's IndyCar? Come on now, I didn't think it was Fake News Network on Fox.
Well, other than that, Mr. Tasca, how was the test drive?
The next pair is fired up. Cody, to me, this is the most interesting pair of the first round. Young Bobby Bodie driving the CP Carrillo Connecting Rods and Pistons Toyota of Del Worship across the racetrack from J.R. Todd, who is now crew chief by Dickie Venables. And when we come back, we're going to watch these two funny cars go at it. A hungry young driver and a former champion with a new crew chief are seeking a first-round win and a maniacal Gainesville. Winner at the Emily Oil NHRA Gatornats, J.R. Todd. Made the crew chief change in the offseason. We're starting to see results, but haven't seen this blossom fully open up yet.
And there's a few things that play into JR's hands. He's very good in these conditions. When you need a driver to save the car, you can call on him. For Bobby Bodie, he's got a good car. What Bobby has going for him is that gentleman right there that owns the car, that sets this car up, that's Del Worship. Very good. And again, one of the few that are very good at navigating marginal tracks that require some clutch adjustments to slip and slide the clutch to manage the power.
J.R. Todd smokes the tires. Bobby Bodie says, get me there. Get me there now. And Bobby Bodie's going to round two. 581.1, 159.7 miles an hour. And he was one more thought of a pedal away from sending the blower to the moon.
Well, this is going to be a good watch. You can see that J.R. Todd, he gets in trouble earlier than Bobby Bodie. It looked like it was just going to be a repeat of the previous race. There's J.R., but he collects it. He gathers it up. Going to try to chase Bodie down, but Bodie just had better momentum. So you can see the DHL car, there it is. It's a lot losing traction. Bodie's got his hands full, but his car shook when he gets back in the throttle. You can see the misfiring cylinder, but his car is not spinning the tires. He's just trying to get smoothly into the throttle. Here it is, a loss of traction, but watch the job that J.R. Todd does. It's lost traction. He's waiting until he opens those throttle blades. And you can see he wants to go wide open throttle, but then he closes it again. He can feel tires are still sideways. And I said earlier with the Trip Tatum thing, it's a big no Most drivers do not get on the throttle when the car is not pointed straight. There are drivers out here that can pull it off. In a funny car, J.R. Todd's one of them, but he knew that Bobby Bodie was far too out in front to chase him to catch him.
Put on your spectacles, rub your lean in toward the screen. We're about to look at the Lucas Oil Nitro Funny Car ladder, and it is shaping up very interesting. At this moment, we have seen the likes of Jack Beckman advance, of course. We have seen Chad Green advance and Buddy Hull, the 12 and 13 qualifiers. Bob Taska III has advanced. Ron Capps will take on Bobby Bodie in round 2.
Jack, during the replay of your run, the booth called your pedal job a master class. What's the secret?
I give it a B-, but thank you guys. I appreciate that. What happens when you close the blade, you get 65 square inches of an injector and a ton of vacuum. And you try to crack the throttle to come wide open, and a gorilla could hardly break it loose. So what happens is this translates into the slap open, close, and then you roll after it again. It wasn't great. It was good enough. And it's hard to not miss it when the racetrack conditions are this much of a crapshoot. Pete Chevy, we didn't miss it by much. And you know what? Give us that run, give us that data, we're going to be fine.
Alexis DeJorian, the Padero Cafe Tequila Rocket Phones machine, and the PNC Cable Construction Ford of Terry Haddock. Terry Haddock's been watching this whole thing saying, so you're telling me I got a chance?
Well, that's the way it goes, and you know, for every 2 or 3 of the tuners that don't like when the track starts to lift and when it rains and when nature takes its course, you know, there's a lot of tuners that like it. For Alexis, I think what she has to caution is that the throttle stuck a little bit at the end of the burnout, could run a little bit of fuel out of it.
Haddock's got cylinders out. Oh, Alexis blows it up in the lights. You see the flaps there in the body hanging around the vents for the pressure of the backfire of the engine. 392 on a 329, but a face full of fire at the end.
Now, there's all sorts of things that could have gone wrong, but let's just go back a few days. Let's take a look at the burnout for Alexis. The throttle hangs open. When a throttle hangs open in a funny car, take a look at the pipes. You're going to see a lot of raw fuel. Why so much fuel coming out during the burnout? Because these superchargers produce so much boost. This is normal, but it's when she gets off of the throttle and the car rolls. Take a look at all of the volume coming out. That is fuel that is forward in that fuel tank, typically about 18 gallons. And somebody has to reach in and close the blades, so there's a good chance that car could have run out of fuel. If it dumped a lot of fuel out, forget about the weight. It's not having the fuel that you need at the finish line, and you can see the explosion. These cars go lean, they explode, they hurt parts, and this exact same thing happened in testing.
There is a question, and our reporters will follow up on this. I don't know if this team has a spare body.
That'll be trouble.
Well, last year's winner here right at the Gator National just had a wild ride down the track. How do you try to manage a funny car like that?
I just needed to be a little more patient. You know, Bobby, he got in trouble, seemed like further down track than I did. Ours blew him off right at the starting line. You just got to be patient with the throttle, kind of roll into it. And I was getting a little too anxious trying to run him down and probably needed to wait a little longer than I did. But either way, I mean, we still got a long road to hoe with our DHL GR Super, bringing Dickie on board. He's changed a lot of stuff on the car, and it's going to take us some races to get it dialed in. And, you know, I told myself going into this season, just be patient and trust the process, and I'm excited about what we're doing.
And so the man who formerly tuned Matt Hagan, who now tunes J.R. Todd, sees a man who was once his apprentice, his understudy, Mike Knudsen. The very tall man on the right-hand side of your screen is now the lead tuner for Matt Hagan, who is taking on Cruz Pedregon in the first round.
You know, he looks composed, he should be, because this team, the core of this team, has been together a long time. Knudsen stood in for Dickie a few times when some physical issues kept Dickie away from the track. He's won a couple of races in that car with that team, with that driver.
And for Cruz Pedregon, the snap-on Dodge rolls in. Pedregon ran 395.0 qualifying. Hagan ran 395.3. The 8-9 qualifiers, the tightest statistical match we have.
Antron's car pitched sideways immediately. Oh, man, Hagan's going to hang on to it late in the run. Still goes 427.5 at 221 miles an hour. Hagan's car actually began to spin the tires in the 330-foot block, and he managed it to the stripe.
Yeah, and that's a tough part. You can see on the racetrack, we call it black tracking, so it leaves somewhat of a fingerprint, a footprint of the tires starting to spin, starting to slip. For the snap-on machine, instant tire smoke, like we've seen so many cars, just the power of the engine RPM at the step of the throttle, you can see how loose it gets. But for Matt Hagan, here's where we're talking about. You can see it unload, start to put cylinders out. That means that rear tire is starting to slip. He stayed on the throttle again. Situational awareness, he doesn't know if that snap-on machine is going to come roaring by him for Matt Hagan and gets him by another round.
But get this, Matt Hagan has lane choice over Jack Beckman despite the pedal job. Chad Green will take on Buddy Hall. DeJory and Tasca. Young Bobby Buddy will take on the multi-time champion Ron Cast. A live look in as John Schaefer has gone full-on whack-a-mole here under the Dodge body of Alexis DeJoria. They're going to make any repairs they need. When we come back, we're going straight into Nitro, kids. Top Fuel Dragsters will be next here on FS1. And got mechanized gladiatorial combat. This is the ride that Trip Tatum took during the first round of Top Fuel Eliminator under the cloudy skies here at Gainesville Raceway, but the day has come around and changed drastically. By the time Austin Brockett on the racetrack, it had gotten a lot warmer. They smoked the tires. As you can see, Bob Tasca wagged his tail past the finish line stripe, pedaling his car multiple times down the racetrack. J.R. Todd's day ended in frustration as well.
Well, sometimes these drivers have to work. They could get a little dicey.
Oh, dicey, you say?
And anytime you're dealing with this amount of horsepower, it could get a little dicey.
Oh, dicey, you say? How about a massive explosion at 300-some miles an hour for Alexis DeJoria, which did not appear to do major damage to the team's only Dutch funny car body. It does appear they're going to be able to make this second round of eliminations, and this is the thrash going on right now. Tony, what's blown out of the front of this intake manifold?
Those are the burst panels right there. By design, they are designed to blow up when they see an excessive amount of pressure. It did appear that there was more pressure that did break these aluminum studs right there that hold the supercharger on, but by design, that's why they are aluminum. You don't want them too strong. When that blower sneezes, something's going to give. It will reduce and minimize some of the damage. The focus is going to be on the engine, some of those components, the intake manifold, as well as repairing the body.
Bob Tasca awaits in round number 2. We now get a look at our K&N key storylines here in Gainesville, Florida. Brittany Force eliminated in round 1. Tony Stewart and Jasmine Salinas have advanced. Canadian Dan Mercier came back from a qualifying disaster, bending his chassis overnight and defeating Trip Tatum as he wrecked his car. It is Brock and Todd failing to advance to round 2, and young Bobby Bodie beat the defending event winner J.R. Todd to move to the second stanza. Now we look at our Top Fuel eliminations ladder here at the Gator Nationals. Brown and Milliken, Coletta Torrance, Mercier Salinas, that's a wild card matchup. Langdon and Stewart. And we are wasting no time and going right back into Top Fuel round number 2. Clay Milliken and Antron Brown, the first pair on the drag strip. Milliken with lane choice has chosen the left-hand side of the Parts Plus Top Fuel dragster. See a little more of a look here at Clay Milliken, the guy from Drummond's, Tennessee, that people love, a true fan favorite, highly passionate guy, of course, winning the U.S. Nationals in 2024. Was the biggest single race win of his life outside of his first one in NHRA competition in Bristol, Tennessee. Let's talk a little bit more about the racetrack. Brian Karate and Bruno, you chatted with Brian a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I did. You know, I asked him what his conditions were right now in terms of the racetrack, and he said, kind of hummed and hawed, honestly. He said it's honestly more normal. It's basically the best way I can describe it. What we saw earlier today was out of our range in terms of normalcy. Although it's gotten warmer, it might have actually gotten a little bit better. The concern with the right lane is it gets pretty bald about 100 feet out. The choice of lanes is typically the left. He's telling me, we'll see how it plays out here with him and Clay.
They roar off. Antron's past that 100-foot mark, and it's Antron Brown, 372-1, 333.25 miles per hour. Milliken's car too slow at 377.2, 324.
On every lane, there seems to be some give and take, and for Brian Karate, the tuner for this machine, he was able to rely on the track specialists that measure the grip and measure the visual, but they can go out. If he knows exactly where the troubled areas are, he can slow the clutch down in that specific area. They have so many adjustments. They can slow timers and flows. They can manipulate timing in that area. Everything that he did seemed to be in the right direction.
Alexis DeJoria's pit has been a hive of activity. Edith Zetterstrom helping to bolt a new windshield back in the car as the old one was damaged in the backfire that they experienced at the end of the run, which we believe, Tony, came from the fact that the engine went very lean. And now we go back to the starting line. It is Jasmine Salinas on one side, and how about Dan Mercier on the other? You see his company logo on the side and then that repair panel, but it went a lot farther than that, Bruno, didn't it, to get this thing fixed?
Yeah, talking about Dan Mercier's team this morning, he said they really worked hard, and it was a collaborative effort by so many teams. They needed some chromoly tubing because once that car lost the tire, it bent the bottom frame rail up. So from Alexis DeJoria, they got chromoly, but then they had to machine that tubing to fit the car, and then they called on Rob Wetland, the guy who actually built the car 5 years ago to weld it in place. So they really thank all the teams out here in the NHRA who showed them a ton of support, because without their efforts, they wouldn't be racing here this round or this morning.
Jasmine Salinas has never been past the second round in competition. And it looks like she's going to today. 375 at 333 miles an hour. Salinas hit the tree for 90. A 384 with one misfiring cylinder for Dan Mercier ends his campaign.
Yeah, that may have been just enough to take Dan Mercier out of the running. He had the slight advantage off the starting line as we get another look at this. This was a good, close race, but right there, right at about 330 feet for Dan Mercier, continued on the throttle, still making power, just losing about 1,400 horsepower. But for Jasmine Salinas and that team, it seems like they're just plugging and playing with a consistent machine.
Amanda Busick is down at the top end. We met Antron before as Jerome, but he might be back to Antron now.
Well, he just told his team that was smooth and right down the boulevard. And I think the question is, if Jerome was driving in round one, who was driving there?
AB's back in the saddle. Jerome got me through there, but I tell you what, my hat's off to this team, Brian, Karate, Brad. That track was tricky. The sun came out. We was out on the outside lane. He lined it up. Man, I'm telling you what, that whole application was really smooth. And that's that brain trust up there. And these guys just putting his car back together and we're getting back up there with those Matco tools. So we're in the semis, first race out, and we still got some more to do. And it's off to a good start. Love the West. Love what I see, baby. Woo!
Antron Brawn is going to maybe love what he sees out of this matchup, because he will face the winner in the next round. Steve Torrence, right-hand side of your screen. Left-hand side is Doug Coletta. Steve Torrence, Tony, comes into this round clean, but Doug Coletta had to pedal his way to it. He went 557 in a desperation round one win.
Well, Doug was one of those cars that ran when the conditions were cooler. The rubber on the racetrack was a lot thinner. Things changed when Steve Torrence went down the track, but they quietly just had a good, quick, consistent car during qualifying for Steve Torrence, and in the first round, the second quick of the session. So I know that they realized that Doug Coletta in the other lane is going to be a factor, so they can't lay up too much, and I don't think there's a big issue with right lane, left lane. We've seen good runs in each of them.
A hot pipe, if you will, for Coletta, and it's going to be Torrence. It looked like Torrence was going to be in trouble there, but it was Doug Coletta's engine consuming itself down the racetrack.
Well, both of them. I mean, it was a nice start for Doug Coletta that gave him the lead. This was, if you look at the elapsed times, it was almost like a funny car race. I mean, a 397 to a 405, and it was a matter of who could get to the finish line with the least amount of problems. There, it looks like the Doug Coletta is burning a valve, so it's impeding that car's performance, and it starts early in the run. You can see it start to misfire there. It's still under power, but in the other lane, it looked like Steve Torrence was good and clean up until we can see some inconsistencies with his engine as well. But this was just a matter of attrition. It was Steve Torrence that was outlasting Doug Coletta.
So Steve Torrence will take on Antron Brawn in the next round of Top Fuel competition. We got to look now at the top end again. Both sides of the engine emitting flame, and one side of the engine emitting raw fuel for Steve Torrence. He got there first. Jasmine Salinas is with Amanda.
Jasmine, it's no secret you've been pretty hard on yourself leading into this brand new season, headed to the semis for the first time in your career. How can these wins like this help you on the mental side?
This is everything for us. We struggled, everyone knows we struggled a lot last year. That wasn't the year that we wanted. We changed a lot of things this offseason. I worked really hard, worked my butt off. I'm not going to embarrass myself again like I did last year, and we're coming back with a lot more. Yeah.
The lessons you learn in this sport are hard ones, and she clearly has taken them to heart. And we can see now it is an all-hands effort here in Alexis DeJoria's car. It looks like they're getting ready to warm it up, Tony.
Well, the good news is they've got plenty of hands on it. The engine is assembled. It looks like they're just doing some finishing touches. The bad news is they've got to hurry up because their pair is coming up.
And the final pair of the second round of Top Fuel Eliminator, looking down for the right trailer's drone. Tony Stewart right side, Sean Langdon left, Bruno Massel somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, Tony Stewart told me before he rolled into this weekend what a struggle. He's for business, been down here for a few weeks for business as well as for testing. He said basically everything has gone wrong. Their nanny had to be hospitalized with a medical issue. They had a crew member get banged up. They had to get the motorhome towed out by a wrecker overnight. He missed some appearances. He said something's got to turn it around. I said, now you're going to win this race. That's usually how this plays out. He said, I'm not holding my breath.
Little tire quiver from Stewart. Finish line stripe, it's Langdon. His premonition was correct, beating Tony's 373.9 at 333 miles an hour. You know, Tony Pedregon, Henry Ford said it best. Whether a man thinks he can or he can't, he's probably right.
Well, I thought he was going to say, don't hold your breath against Sean Langdon. That's not a bad idea either. The starting line advantage from Sean Langdon, a good strong run, a good effort from Tony Stewart. They've really got that, you know, it just seems like they slowed it down a little bit too much. Sean Langdon's car, there wasn't anything wrong with it, but for Tony Stewart, the quickest car in the first round, and it just seems like they were on the receiving end of the wrong race.
Some of the incrementals early on were close, and then they stretched it out. It is Brawn and Torrance on one side, the pals. And on the other side, the number 10 qualifier, Jasmine Salinas, will look to step up her personal performance and the mechanical performance of the car against Sean Langdon. When we come back, we'll talk to both Alexis DeJoria and Ida Zetterstrom, a tandem of females racing in the fuel-burning ranks. Display here in the pits. VP Racing Fuel is the official fuel of the NHRA, and of course a big sponsor for Ida Zetterstrom. She is picking up maybe a little nitro, a little mix-it-yourself stuff over there as we continue on with our coverage of these Emily Oil NHRA Gator Nationals. The thrash is on, and Alexis DeJoria is picked. They're about to fire that car up. We actually sat down with both Alexis DeJoria and Ida Zetterstrom, who are teammates unexpectedly in 2025.
We're kicking off the 2025 season right in Women's History Month, and you guys have written the headline for us. What makes women good drag racers?
You want to start?
We read each other's minds.
Hey girl, you would give your heart just to see what's real.
All the women that are out here, they want it so bad. Like, it's so much passion in it, and that's probably what makes us good, because being out here, you need to want it. This is not something that you just do for fun. This is something you do because you live for it, and the passion is so strong. So the women you do see out here, we have put so much heart into being here, and that's also what makes us good.
In the time that you guys have spent together so far, how are you alike?
Well, I think we are both very headstrong, badass women. We know what we want, we're focused. We both ride motorcycles. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know.
I think we love a lot of the same things.
Yeah,
like, a lot of that way in life.
And this happened organically. Like, the fact that it wasn't forced. We're not out here trying to, like, you know, make a name for ourselves. We're not trying to, like, you know, do that whole deal. I mean, the marketing aspect, we're way past that.
What does a new season signal for you?
Fresh start, clean slate.
It's just on a high for me, obviously. But yeah, having a teammate that comes in with that energy, I think it's going to be good for the whole team.
How do you describe your edge?
I don't give up. That's like, you know, I'll fight to the death. I do not give up.
My edge is that I want to be out here so bad. I want to be the best version of a driver that you can ever find. Like, I want people to say that what I did was truly good.
Sorry, this is my toughest question of the day. How do you say speed in Swedish?
Oh, God, no.
Fart.
She said it.
Say it again.
Fart.
Now you gotta make
How do you spell it?
F-A-R-T. Fart.
I love this.
She's gonna make some t-shirts for us.
Yeah, and if you want to say good speed, it's actually bra fart.
Bra fart.
Bra fart?
Yeah.
Yep.
T-shirts.
So we're hoping for some bra fart this weekend.
Okay. Good bra fart.
Linguistics, and now Brawn nitromethane. As you can see, Alexis DeJoria warming up the funny car in the pit area. Her team has been working to both mend the body and the engine in this car. They did an engine swap, removing the damaged short block. As you can see, Truman pointing out something here from the back of the race car. They are hustling, so aren't we. We'll be back to burn more nitromethane. Round 2 in just around a bit.
Who is Amalie Motor Oil? In all 50 states.
We're back in the pit area. The Carlisle display set up here as Ron Capps carrying those Carlisle colors this weekend, celebrating 100 years of the Napa company and a decades-long partnership. We now get back to the racetrack. We have Buddy Hull on one side, and we have Chad Green on the other. The Bonco Ford Mustang, and it is the True Brand Dodge. You know, Tony, we come into this round, Buddy Hull ran a very nice 404. Could that be good enough to win here again?
It sure can. I mean, they're racing a team that has really gotten their performance back on track. It's not going to be an easy race, but best scenario for Buddy Hull's car is to stay on course, don't give it away on the starting line.
Chad Green's car is a Chad Green 410 at 312, and boy, if they could have that 404 back.
Yeah, you know, and some
that 404 back.
Yeah, you know, and some things go away. The supercharger, if it loses some of the boost, these cars get very sensitive to misfiring a cylinder. That may have been the case with Buddy Hull. The door was wide open, but it was Chad Green that caught a break. Only with 7 cylinders got to the finish line first.
As we look at Chad Green's run, Tony, you can see the car leave the starting line. The machine missing on the left-hand side of the engine, right-hand side of your screen here, but ultimately that might have saved him from tire spin.
Well, there's a good chance. I mean, regardless, he was able to recognize it. A driver can hear, they can feel the G-meter fall off a little bit. They can hear the engine start to labor, but unless it's popping or banging or really hanging its tongue out, meaning really dropping the engine RPM, the driver, for the most part in competition, is going to keep their foot in it, and for Chad Green, it paid off.
We go back to the pit area. The Alexis DeJoria team, they are thrashing right to the end. The chutes are being packed, and these cars are on the racetrack. They are down to the very last bare bones of minutes and seconds to get into the lanes. As that time continues to run out, we see Matt Hagan, the body up here for this beautiful red and blue Dodge Direct Connection Charger, and across the drag strip, Jack Beckman, the peak Blue Def Chevrolet Camaro. Beckman's car is clearly the best one on the grounds.
It has been. He had to get off and on the throttle just like Hagan. Hagan did it slightly better, so both these tuners between rounds had to make some adjustment to try to adapt to these warming conditions a little bit better than they did from the first round.
The right trailer's drone looking down on the funny cars as Daniel Hood and Mike Knudsen walk away and watch their handiwork. It was a bit of a wild one here in this first pairing. We'll see what the second pair brings us. 2 big performing cars. It is Beckman with problems, and Matt Hagan roars to a 398 at 327 miles an hour. One of the things I like to see, Tony, this team turns around and walks away like they should have won the round.
It was all burst off of the starting line. Not necessarily quicker at 60 feet, but much better. And it was early in that run for Jack Beckman that his car encountered problems. And you can see the tire shake, the chatter behind the car, that the imprint that the car leaves. The tuner's going to go back and he's going to scratch his head and try to figure out why in these warmer conditions that car didn't have the proper wheel speed that it should have had, and that right there did Jack Beckman in.
And this overhead view shows Alexis DeJoria's car recently patched up, repaired, and rebuilt, heading into the staging lanes as the pair before her completes their burnouts. They have cut this as thin as deli ham on their way up here to the starting line. We now climb aboard the Carlisle Tools Toyota Supra of Ron Capps as he backs his way up a helmet's eye view.
Well, for the driver, they're paying all of their attention to the person in front of them, trying to put them in the position that they need to be. For Ron Capps, he knows how important, how vital that is. Of course, he's going to get the car back. He's going to push the clutch in, get it neutral, get it back in forward gear, and once the team sees that, they lift the body up, and now the tuner's just making final adjustments, most importantly on the idle.
Bobby Bodie here is a dangerous opponent for Ron Capps. If Del Worsham has been able to do what several other crew chiefs have done this round and tame his car to the conditions, Bobby Bodie can lead within pretty much anybody in this category.
Well, he's young, he's got some young legs, he's energetic, and he knows he's in a good car. It's very competitive in qualifying. He was very consistent, had a couple of issues at the end of the track, but, you know, it just seems like there's a good bit of chemistry between himself and Del Worsham. He's got to look over at that Napa car and know that that was one of the quickest cars in that first round.
As we monitor these cars, Guido walks to the back of his automobile. Oh, Bobby smokes the tires, and Ron Capps goes 395 at 330 miles per hour. He will move on to the next round. That'll be the round of 4 here in Nitro Funny Car.
You know, and again, we talk about the issues that we saw in the first round for Top Fuel in particular, but a lot of it, some of it could be the track. We know the track conditions weren't that great, but here again, we have adverse conditions. We see the cars slowing down. That's the tuner going back to the pit and making the proper adjustments. They're changing their target and adjusting, adapting to these conditions that they're given.
We see Ron Capps here looking out the front windshield. The safety safari rolling up this way. He's on to the next round.
Pat Hagan fired up here at the top end, headed to the semifinals, and you just said that is a tough competitor over there with Jack Beckman. How deep of your memory goes with racing him?
Man, I tell you, it's always like this old school feel anytime I race him or Caps or any of those guys, you know, and it's just like go back to the old days when we were all teammates and we had the best of best parts, and now everybody's scattered out. He's over here with Forrest, and Caps owns his own team, and I'm over here with Tony, and it's just cool that we're still all out here racing each other, and this fans out here, they waited through the rain. It's a packed house, and hopefully we put on a show for them.
So back to the starting line we go. Bob Tassi, the third, left-hand side of your screen. He got the venom out after his last round, taking on Alexis DeJoria. Bruno, what do you know about this team?
I can tell you they were crashing up to the last second. They came in hot up here, and people were still hanging on the body. I think tightening screws on the windshield. Actually, when they lifted the body when it came up and it came off the supports and got cockeyed, they needed to crew over and straighten it back up. Then when they tried to lower it and go to the water box, they had a struggle. They had a hard time getting the body down like there was a clearance issue. Right now, it just seems to go down smoothly, so it seems like they got it okay, but you can tell that the hearts are beating on these people's chests. They've been working all the way through that whole time.
The body is spring-loaded. They do want it to push down. Both of those latches have to be latched down the racetrack. Both of those latches have to be latched. Tech's looking at that. Everything appears to be good.
Bob Tassi's car finally stages. And he smokes the tires. It's the thrash and a dash for Alexis DeJoria. 399.9 at 322 miles an hour, an almost improbable round win.
Well, you mentioned, you pointed something interesting out. Tasca's car, I don't believe that he did that intentionally. Occasionally, if you don't have the stall, that is the pressure on the clutch. So when the driver is stepping off the clutch, it should pull the motor down. It should kind of tug itself into those stage beams. A lot of time, if it's not adjusted properly and the driver releases the brake, the car's not rolling. So Tasca didn't want to overstage. I don't know that any of that played a role in what happened. This car looked like it just missed the setup. You can see that rear tire start to basketball, and once it loses traction, it's Alexis, like she has done all weekend, get down the racetrack from start to finish.
Bruno's with Mike Neff.
Mike Neff, you should be all smiles. I know you're not a big emotion guy, but the thrash that went on was truly incredible. So you guys go out there and run a 399. What caused that thing to blow up in the first place?
That was our first run to the finish line, and we didn't have the counter set right to shut the car off at the end, and drove it a little far, and it kicked a rod out when she lifted. So we got that moved in, and yeah, it was just, we're not in a position for this kind of thrash right now, but fortunately all our teammates jumped in and helped us and borrowed a couple spare parts from some other teams, and happy to make it.
Now let's look at the Nitro Funny Car Ladder, and this is looking like one of the most memorable Gator Nationals I think I can ever put my mind to, as Pat Hagan will take on number 13 qualifier Chad Green, and Alexis DeJoria, the woman of the moment, will take on Ron Capps. Amanda Busick is at the top end with someone who has to be elated, Alexis DeJoria.
Oh, guys, and she's just all over the place taking in this moment. You've hugged your team. You've been hollering coming out of the funny car. Alexis, you are going rounds today. How bad did you need this?
Oh, really bad, especially after that last thrash. We only have one body, one chassis right now. So to get that first round win was amazing, and then we just had that pop at the end, but thank God our body was all right. And thank God we got a multi-car team, but you know what? My team's badass. These guys thrashed. We got there in time, and we got the second round win. We're going to the semifinals. What's that all about?
What that's all about is a whole lot of hard work and dedication, sweat, blood, and tears, and adrenaline. When we come back, Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle take to the drag strip, and it has been an interesting day on the Nitro side, and we know the gas burners are going to put on a heck of a show as well, especially if it includes the champion. Official copy of the NHRA. It's a company that was founded by and is operated by veterans and first responders. In each and every race, they recognize the fire department copy community hero. This race, it is the fire chief from Riviera Beach, Florida, John Kerr Jr. His hard work and dedication has resulted in the opening of the city's first fire station, which includes an emergency operations center to best meet the needs of the local community. It's going to help protect and serve the community of Riviera Beach better than they have been in the past, and we congratulate John F. Kerr for being the fire department copy community hero. Tony, let's talk about Pro Stock Eliminated.
A field of Chevy Camaros equipped with a finely tuned big block Chevy engine, steel engine block, aluminum cylinder heads, electronic fuel injection since 2016. These cars will launch off of the starting line at close to 7,000 engine RPM, and that will vary depending on how aggressive they want to be at that launch. High octane racing gas, and starting this year will feature a different manufacturer that will potentially change how much power the 1,400 horsepower engines will generate.
They are amazing machines, and they are studies in mechanical efficiency. Greg Anderson, who won the title in 2024, now has a half dozen Pro Stock championships. He is tied for second all-time now with Eric Anders, and everybody continues to chase the legendary Bob Glidden in their title count. For Greg Anderson, it has been a record-setting weekend, and we had no other choice but to look at the Fenn record-setting performance of Greg Anderson during Friday night qualifying, where he lowered the boom and lowered the bar of Pro Stock performance.
I go back a few years, like quite a few years, and remember when funny cars were running 640 more speed, but it's amazing how a machine on high-octane racing gas can pound out this kind of performance.
The quickest run in history. Jordan Vandergrift's with him.
Greg Anderson is now a 6-time champion, and he comes into this race qualified at number 1. Greg, you've been so good for so long. How do you keep that going?
Got to keep finding ways to reinvent myself, to try to keep up with these youngsters in the class. They're relentless. They could care less how many championships I've got, race wins I've got. When they line up, they just know they're going to kick my butt. So I have to find a way to channel my inner youth, and hopefully we can do that today.
And Greg has been able to do that. Last year, he was able to dial up his performance to hang with the youngest and the best in the category, our Lucas Oil Pro Stock Ladder. We can see some interesting battles here, including the Coughlin family versus the Stanfields in 2 generations.
So you have Hartford going against Mason McGay. That is going to be a very compelling matchup. And Derek Kramer, the number 2 seed, taking on Corey Reed.
And now let's look at the biggest moments from round number 1 in Pro Stock. And we start here with Derek Reese. Now you see the KD Racing. He is racing with Kenny Delco. And along with Kenny Delco, maybe some more help than that. There were some interesting shirts hanging out behind this car. Eric Anders with the Elite Motorsports crew. They both left with a 36 light, but look at this, Tony. The upset of the race so far. Derek Reese records his first round win against Erica Enders.
Derek Reese, without question, was up for the challenge, and his car, he's been so reliable, continued. Erica Enders continues with her problem.
Now the Harlow Salmons of Odessa Chevrolet Camaro of Mason McGahey. And Matt Hartford, a car which ran very well in testing, and then ran very well in early qualifying. Mason McGahey on the Toyota side, Amelie side for Hartford. Both drivers had to pedal, but young McGahey did it best.
He did it best, and it started right off the starting line. That's 300s or better off the starting line. It was going to take a lot for Matt Hartford to catch him.
Then it was time to look into a multi-generational Stanfield battle. Troy Coughlin Jr. took on Aaron Stanfield. We can see the teams and the starting line officials making sure that was coming out of Stanfield's car. Gatornats wins. You can see a couple for both drivers in multiple different categories. It was Stanfield's car spinning early, allowing Troy Coughlin Jr. to waltz to a victory.
Yeah, and it looked like even for Troy, well, he was on his mark. All these cars have slowed down. There's more humidity that has an effect on these 1,400 horsepower machines.
Greg Anderson, the defending world champion, seeking championship 7 at the end of the 2025 campaign at this HendrickCars.com, Summit Racing Equipment Chevrolet. And the Harlow Salmons of Odessa, Southwest Performance, Silver Bullet of Chris McGahey. Anderson had 7 thousandths advantage on the lead, and then just laid into it deeper and deeper from there. 6:54.0 for Greg Anderson as he makes Chris McGahey, Cole Houdini disappearing act.
Well, the impressive thing about Greg Anderson and his tuning acumen is he's able to run quick when the conditions are there. He recognizes that, and he also races smart. He, laid up enough that these tuners realize that the conditions overall are different, and they have to make a lot of adjustments.
Those are the highlights from round 1 eliminations in Pro Stock. Look at this. The crowd was absolutely on their feet for Alexis DeJoria, and she was fired up, hanging out of the tow rig. A massive crowd here at Gainesville Raceway, braving treacherous conditions today, have been rewarded with one dandy of a drag race, and you can see how fired up they are watching this car go back into the pits. It has to energize the team as they go to work. Now we go to round 2 highlights in Pro Stock. Dallas Glenn, Tony, few people have come as close to a championship, meaning 0.02 of a second than that guy, and he's racing Troy Coughlin Jr.
Yeah, and I think for Dallas Glenn, it's only going to make him better. The competition is such that you've got to be sharp during the regular season at the first race. And for Dallas Glenn, he is showing no signs of having gone through that battle last year.
6:59, a classic Glenn Coughlin matchup here. The Rad Torque Systems Camaro got it done by a cowling. Then it was Eric Latino, the Global Emission Systems, Jesse Converters, G-Sport, Chevrolet Camaro out of the KB Titan Racing Team. Jake Coughlin Jr. The Skag Power Equipment, Outlaw Beer, Mile High Outlaw Beer, Melling Performance Camaro, Elite Motorsports. You cannot give Jeg anything. Credit to Latino. He stepped up from his average, but Jeg was still better.
Yeah, Tino really needed to make improvements off the starting line. He did everything that he could, but when you're racing Jeg Jr. in these later rounds, you have to be even sharper. For Jake Coughlin, he's done this so many times for this team.
Watch the world go by at 200+ miles an hour. The Chesney onboard camera shows us a rip down Gainesville Raceway. This, the photo finish, is how tight Eric Latino made it and how much there was to give for Jake Coughlin, which was none at all. The U.S. Air Force sign there at the bottom. The Camping World pole shot of the round for Pro Stock. This now shows us our semifinal ladder. It'll be Greg Anderson and Jeggy going against Corey Reed. Corey Reed, although he qualified 15th, may have gone Reed. When we return, we switch the number of tires. From 4 to 2 and go into the Pro Stock motorcycle category, a category that this man, Nhra, aims to dominate once again in 2025, but the work's getting tough.
Actors. We can make
Gatornationals is sponsored by Camely, better than it has to be since 1903, and by Camping World, America's recreation dealer. The Pro Stock motorcycles are set to take to the drag strip, Tony. Give it the skinny.
200-mile-per-hour machine with different weight brakes depending on the engine design. The 4-cylinder going over the scales between 620 to 650 pounds, generating 400 between 620 to 650 pounds, generating 400 horsepower. They too, like the Pro Stock cars, will have to adjust to a different fuel manufacturer that may influence the top speed nearing and exceeding 200 miles per hour.
They are exciting machines. They are very technical machines, and they are among the most difficult to pilot down this drag strip as quickly as possible. But one man who has certainly mastered them quickly is Nhra, the back-to-back Pro Stock motorcycle world champion, riding his Vance & Hines, Revzilla, Motul, Suzuki, Hayabusa. The back-to-back championships come in his first 2 full seasons in the category, and he has been nothing short of phenomenal. Not just in 2023, but also, as you can see here, in 2024, his championship review, 10 wins. He won the last 5 races of 23, the first 6 races of 24, creating the longest win streak in NHRA professional class history. 9 number 1 qualifiers and 50-round wins for his 2nd straight year. His teammate is Richard Gadsden. He's come along very well. No wins yet, but he's on the verge of grabbing one. And he's the subject of this week's Suzuki Science of Speed.
Richard Gadsden is entering his sophomore season here in Pro Stock Motorcycle. And your team, Richard, last year was hit with a flurry of rule changes trying to slow you guys down. As we enter the 2025 season, where do you guys sit in terms of performance and the whole parity of the category?
Well,
Well, you know, we got VC25 so here, and so we're all on C25. So it'll take a few races before the dust kind of settles on everybody's performance. But you know, the narrative of it's better for one combination or the other, I believe that's a crock of crap. I think we all should pick up this year. It just might take a few races, but I do honestly feel like we're at a disadvantage. I know that's polar opposite of what's out there, but you know, the quality of runs that we have to make, how hard we have to get it in the early numbers of the racetrack in order to run with the fast twins, and they have the ability to run the 60s that we do. They've done it. So, but you know, we kind of choose to just kind of let the numbers speak for us, and but I do think that we have an uphill battle against the V Twins right now. But it's the cards we're dealt right now. We're just going to keep playing them the best we can. You know, hopefully we're not 660 pounds for long, and but you know, it's not my department. We're just going to do the best we can to get to the finish line first.
And we'll find out who gets to the finish line first as we get a look at our Lucas Oil competition ladder. Nhra will take on Gino Scali, who was not an Advanced Hines motorcycle, but instead on the same bike he ran in 2003 to win a championship, now with a 4-valve cylinder head.
Matt Smith and Angie Smith coming in the number 2 and 3. Very strong qualifying efforts will take on Bonham and Davis.
And so now let's take a look at highlights from Pro Nations. Brandon Linton making a second career start. Linton made one start last year. And he came out this year, qualified for the show to take on Richard Gadsden in the Revzilla. Advanced Hines, Motul, Suzuki, and you can see Gadsden took it to him. 682 beats a 699.
Well, this is just the competitive nature of Richard Gadsden. He's racing a relative rookie and still gets him off the starting line, knowing his bike's going to perform.
Lance Bonham across from Matt Smith, the Denso Ironman motorcycle. The second quickest motorcycle on the property. You can see what he thought of Lance Bonham with an 098 light on purpose. He walks around him.
I think a lot of these riders, they kind of pace themselves and they ease up on the starting line, knowing they don't quite have to push just yet.
At 675, taking care of business. Gage Herrera had Gino Scali in the starting line. Herrera had the same tactic as Smith. I'm in no hurry.
Yeah, well, he's got that red line to deal with, and he's still caught him by the 8th mile.
676.6 at 200.11 miles per hour. Scali ran 715. Let's ride with Gage, the Suzuki on board. Very little movement, smooth as butter for Gage Herrera on to round number 2. We now move to round number 2. Matt Smith lined up next to Gianna Evaristo. Angie Smith and Gianna Evaristo lined up side by side. Evaristo throws the clutch out, 004 green. Angie Smith was 35. Gianna's bike's been running very well, but not as good as the Denso pink bike. 681 beats a 687.
Almost able to hold her off, but she looked at the performance of Angie Smith over the course of the weekend and knew she needed something off the starting.
Smith lined up next to John Hall. Don't be confused, the American Rebel Light Beer. Next to John Hall. Don't be confused, the American Rebel Light Beer machine was Angie's bike last year, but John Hall, he can pull off the pink, but he can't pull off a win light, that's for sure, as Matt Smith with another somnolent 105 reaction time goes 676. Now run Hall 691.4. At some point, Matt's going to have to try to hit the tree. A bike link on John Hall to the stripe. At some point is going to be coming next round. A bike link on John Hall to the stripe. This is what the semifinals look like in pro stock motorcycle. Matt and Gage on yet another collision course, it would so seem, but Chase Van Zandt and Angie Smith may have other plans. Jasmine Salinas warming up her Top Fuel car. The first ever semifinal appearance by the Scrappers Top Fuel car with Jasmine at the tiller is coming when
in over 100 in all 50 states.
Gainesville Nitro Fishing Tournament that took place before there. Darryl Quinn. Joe Costello even went out there on the boat, dropped some lines out there. They were reeling in fish all day. Joe Costello even went out there on the boat, dropped some lines out there. They were reeling in fish all day long. Some big mouth bass and other certain aquatic creatures. And Daryl Quinn was a part of the track walk for those who can and raises money for the Bonafani Foundation, which certainly helps provide folks mobility that need it. They do a lot of great work, and Daryl Quinn has been a huge factor in raising money for the foundation. As we can see, Antron Brawn, Bobby Bodie signing autographs at the Toyota autograph session earlier this weekend. We've had big rocket crowds here all weekend long in Gainesville, despite the fetch on us on Saturday and earlier today. The semifinal round of Top Fuel is upon us. The semifinal round of Top Fuel is upon us. Antron Brawn will take on Steve Torrance, and it will be Jasmine Salinas taking on Sean Langdon. And that pairing will be on the racetrack right now. Tony, it's fair to say that for Jasmine Salinas, this is a tall order. It's her first semifinal round. She comes into this round behind Langdon on both reaction time and performance. Not to say she can't win, but she's going to have to find something within herself in this car.
Well, she's been around the sport long enough. She got to see her dad have a lot of success, win a lot of races, and she knows that she has to step up her program off of the starting line in particular at this stage of the game. In the semifinals, going up against one of the best in Sean Langdon, who was quicker in the previous round.
Both cars lead very well. Langdon begins to motor away at the top end, 372 at 332.84 miles per hour. Gets the job done, 377 at 328 for Salinas. She got better each round leaving the starting line, but Langdon owned both ends of this one.
Yeah, what a good showing for Jasmine Salinas. We'll take a look at this race. You can see her very competitive off the starting line, only 0.02 of a second behind Sean Langdon. The car moving around, skating around just by the slightest amount at the finish line, but Sean Langdon, this team is not making mistakes. You can see that good weight distribution. You can see how it's arching the chassis at the 8th mile, just seeing that clutch application and really absorbing a lot of the energy.
Sean Langdon won this race a year ago, and he's heading to his 45th career final. Speaking of that 1 year ago victory here at the Gatornats, we get a look back in the final round against none other than Mr. Torrance.
We'll see with this next round. You can see Steve Torrance getting those tires spinning, putting those flooding the cylinders with too much fuel and just taking himself out of the race.
The Golden Gator and the Wally for Langdon, and he is now back with Amanda in the same spot.
Sean, I just heard your crew chief on NHRA.tv say that he was expecting more out of that car. How was it reflected for your run?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we need the win light regardless. So, that's why I love Brian being my crew chief, because his expectations are through the roof just as mine. And so I feel like that's just such a good fit for everybody at the Coletta Air Careers car, Toyota, everybody. Going to the final, it's going to be tough no matter what, but we're ready for it.
You know, back in the pits, I caught up with Antron Brawn, and it gave me a little insight on how he pedals the car. He said early in his career, he really struggled because he wanted to react. He actually does. He pulls his foot completely out from underneath the pedal and the tow hook and brings it back. Pulls his foot completely out from underneath the pedal and the tow hook and brings it back in. It gives enough time to let it slow down and his mind to slow down to get back into that throttle and get the car back glued down the racetrack.
That technique has worked well for him today. Steve Torrance is across the racetrack. These two have given each other no quarter. It's Antron Brawn, 375.4, 324.36 miles an hour, and the champ has not missed a beat today.
Well, if you count how he finished off the year, winning a championship, winning the last race of the year, and finding himself in the final round and being very competitive. He's a couple of hundredths of a second slower than Sean Langdon going into this final, but both these drivers very amped up for the starting line. You can see the slightest advantage for Antron Brawn. And a good run for both of them, just not quite enough jam for that Capco machine.
For Antron Brawn, this is 116 career finals. He is seeking his 81st national event victory, 65th in Top Fuel. There's a look at the finish line, the Lucas Oil finish line cam showing him roaring to the finish line. That 0:32 reaction time is a very, very strong signal that he is not willing to give anybody an inch, especially an old friend and a 4-time champion in Steve Torrance. This week's Skag close cut margins of victory show us here the Jake Coughlin Jr. Jake Coughlin Jr. taking on Eric Latino here in the second round of Pro Stock. Mere inches at the finish line stripe at over 200 miles per hour. And we look at our list of the closest margins of victory thus far in our contest here at the Emily Oil NHRA Gator Nationals. You can see in Top Fuel 21 thousandths of a second in the first round for Funny Car. Holland Wilkerson, 100th of a second. There's not that many tight spreads in the old Funny Car category today. And Klotz defeating Haler in round 1 with simply 27 thousandths of a second. We continue with the Nitro and the big stars, including this man, Matt Hagan, when we return. Great collection, a hot rod collection of hot rods and muscle cars and historic drag cars here this weekend at the Gatornationals, from this killer Ultra to a small block Chevy. Beautiful Chevy 2 back there, the Frankenstein 3 with its metal flake paint job. We move into the funny cars. It was very late to show up. They were assembling the car as it was sitting at the ready line in the staging lanes. But for Matt Hagan, it seems to be going smooth as glass. The right trailer's drone showing Hagan in the red-blue direct connection Dodge SRT Hellcat Red Eye funny car making his way back. What can we say about Matt Hagan that has not been said? The 4-time champion of his hometown of Salem, Virginia. He's the cattle rancher. He's the owner of a Hagan Cattle Company. He's involved in a multitude of different businesses. But right now, Tony, the business at hand is beating up on Chad Green.
Well, Matt Hagan is just one of those drivers you can always rely on. He's going to be solid. This car has seen some changes in terms of the crew chief, but it's going to stay on course because the crew chief that really has taken over the responsibilities, he's tuned this car before. He's very familiar with what the former tuner was doing.
Bruno, what happened with Chad Green?
You know, Brian, you said they were late to the Ultra getting up here. I talked to one of the crew guys that was waiting on them at the starting line. He said they had to do an unplanned motor change at the last second. He said they've got some new crew members, so it took longer than anticipated, but they're here.
They're here, and they got a good tune-up in that car. At the finish line, it's Green. That is incredible. 392.2, 330 miles an hour. I can't believe it. I don't think they can either.
Well, it's textbook. When you are in trouble, when your back's against the wall, why come out here and try to match their performance or try to run what you have been running, which really hasn't been that great? It was good enough to get them here because they've been pretty steady, but do something, bad intentions, set the car up in an attempt to run quicker. It is getting cooler. There's more rubber on the racetrack. Everything they tweaked that car, every knob that they turned was the right move.
So Chad Green's 5th career final, seeking win number 2. Steve Torrence lost to Antron Brawn, but caught up with Amanda Busick.
An amazingly close race between a 4-time champion, 2 4-time champions, and I know Antron Brawn came over to you after the race, but Steve, you were dialed in today. What's been the change from last season?
You know, we done a little bit of evaluating of ourselves and really worked on getting the car. The car was kind of letting me down a little bit, and we collectively worked together really hard this offseason to get it back where it was at. And I mean, if you want to be a 4-time champ, you got to go up there and perform like that. The car let us down a little bit today. We'll go back and figure out, because I know we weren't trying to run 77. We're probably trying to run closer to that 72 or 3. But these Capco boys, we're here. We're tough competitors when we're here, so we'll just put on the best show we can.
Did you race like it today?
Absolutely.
Certainly can't deny that. They put on a good display, but were ultimately out-muscled. So now we have on the racetrack Alexis DeJoria, right side of the screen. It has been a chaotic day for Alexis, but an ultimately successful one. And the Carlisle Tools Toyota of Ron Capps, who are still wearing the Napa colors as well, as Napa and Carlisle are associated brands. 100-year anniversary of Napa being celebrated this year. Tony, after what we just saw, what is available out there at the racetrack? Is there better than a 92, and does either of them need it?
It has to be. I mean, the track temperature's still down. The grip has to be quite a bit better than it has been, especially from the first round. There's more rubber on the racetrack, and it just makes you wonder, did Dean Antonelli, the tuner for that Carlisle machine, did he go in that box after he saw that 392? If you ask me, you look over at Warson's car, what Alexis has been doing, she's been driving good. That car's been pretty smooth, pretty steady, and I would think the conditions right now would allow these tuners to be more aggressive.
Arrow colors as Mike Neff points to the windshield and walks to the back of the Dodge. And it will be Ron Capps, a 4 miles an hour. Very strange out there. It seemed like someone might have breathed on the gas pedal or something. The sound of them might have breathed on the gas pedal or something. The sound of the launch was odd.
We should be able to see. We'll get another look at this. There's no question that the Capps machine was spinning the tires. Oh, we'll get another look at it. Right now, she's rolled the car and they're both staged. Take a look at that front tire. She's going to squeeze on the throttle. Regardless of the big brake pressure, that car rolls. Now, it may or may not have upset the sequence of clutches, or rather the clutch that starts to apply, but you can see there she surges the car forward. She didn't red light. And here's a good run from Ron Capps up until he gets to the 8th mile.
hear the car start to rev up. Take the right. Dude, the driver can feel that. He can G-meter fall off, but, you know, again, we've seen it so many times. The driver does not know where their opponent is. He can't see much on the peripheral vision, but he is in competition. There wasn't anything that was major going wrong with the engine, and he kept his foot in it and was rewarded for it.
When we come back, the semifinals of Pro Stock Eliminator, the Final Four, 3 KB and 1 Elite.
UFL is history and motion.
Jag Green's pit area. They already have the cylinder heads off the engine. The thrash is on, and these guys have been thrashing all day. They had to do an engine swap apparently after an issue trying to warm the car up. Now the good thing is for Chad, with the addition of Blake Alexander, means the addition of Blake Alexander's crew, so they're all hands on deck.
Well, and that looks good for them since they changed the motor earlier. There's a good chance it does appear that short block will stay in the car for the final round.
Two legends, first half of the semifinal in Pro Stock. Anderson, and look at Jake Coughlin, 004 green. Finish line stripe, it's still Anderson. 654, 1 and 210. Jake did everything but throw the kitchen sink at him out there, and he got outrun by 13 inches.
If there was a horse collar in drag racing, this has to be it when you give up a few hundredths of a second off of the starting line and still just overpower your way to the finish line.
For Greg Anderson, that is 3 runs in a row. He has won within 1,000th of a second. We watch again.
At 330 feet, he actually gained close to 300ths of a second.
Big power in that car. As we know, he set the world record, 35 10,000ths of a second. And Jake Coughlin and the Skag Power Equipment machine, this is how tight it was. I mean, come on. Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just very subtle in every increment that he was able to pull ahead of Jag at the finish line.
So will it be Corey Reed or Dallas Glenn? Will it be a replay of the winner-take-all final from Pomona, California? Or will it be the 3rd career final for Corey Reed, who is seeking his first career victory? For Greg Anderson, it is career final 183. Gathered behind the cars. Final adjustments made to Reed's wheelie bars now. A red light start for Corey Reed, and a trip toward the center line is Dallas Glenn. A free pass into the final round to take on his boss yet again, and he will go in 1,000th behind him. What is this with Greg at 1,000th of a second today? It's all about that. 654, 2 and 210 for Glenn. Greg will pick his lane.
Well, it's a shame for Corey Reed. You want to be quick off the line, but of course not that quick. He instantly fouls out, and really, if you look at his performance, he only qualified in the 15th position. However, he was quicker than Dallas in the first round, quicker in the second round, so he was really the guy to beat, but Dallas Glenn, he just has so many runs down the racetrack, and, you know, maybe Corey Reed just pushing a little bit too hard.
Take a peek at our U.S. Air 300 at 35 miles per hour for Sean Langdon was the peak speed and top fuel. For Ron Capps, he lit up miles per hour for Sean Langdon was the peak speed and top fuel. For Ron Capps, he lit up the night sky in the Carlisle funny car as he went ripping through here at Friday night speeds of 335.73 miles per hour. Terry Haddock, a career best speed on that run at 317.87, still nothing to sneeze at. Of course, we can see Pro Stock, Greg Stanfield at just shy of 213. And for Pro Stock Motorcycle, Matt Smith just shy of 204. The U.S. Air Force top speeds of the weekend here at the Gator Nationals. Semifinal round, Herrera Van Zandt, and it's all Smith family on the other side. I love the Herrera Van Zandt battle, which will be the second pair. Or the first pair, rather, Tony, the young riders who are exceptionally talented.
Well, Ron, I hate to remind you of this, but it almost doesn't even make sense that you were in 5 finals last season and never took the Wally home. What have you seen today that you think that'll be different?
Amanda, this has been a crazy one. On her lane, I didn't know if she red lit or what happened. You talking about emotions in like a span of 7 or 8 red lit or what happened? You talking about emotions in like a span of 7 or 8 seconds? It's crazy. But Carlisle Tools, thank you. Napa Auto Care for the in-car camera and the visor cam for our fans. They love you. And I don't know. I'm mad for not hanging on and keep it in the groove. I'll be okay when I get back. I got to apologize to Guido. So hopefully whatever lane we get put in will be okay. Love you guys.
So now it is Chase Van Zandt, the Trick Tools Suzuki, Trick Tools being the family business of Nhra. The Van Zandt Hines, Revzilla, O'Toole, Suzuki Hayabusa, the Suzuki onboard camera here for Herrera. 2 starting line killers, and they go off, and Van Zandt goes red 14 green for Gage, who always dials it up when he needs to. A 676.4 and 198 for Chase Van Zandt, squeezed it too hard.
Well, foul start is very easy to explain when you just go back a round or 2 or 3 and see your opponent's previous performance, whether it's the machine or how he has been, how quick he's been reacting off the starting line. For Chase Van Zandt, really understood that he had his hands full and he needed some kind of edge and just cut it to.
And Angie on their Denso V-twin mules. When we talk about Denso V-twin mules, when we talk about Matt Smith, we're talking about a man who has achieved the seemingly impossible in pro stock motorcycle. As a solo team, a 6-time champion out of the hometown of King in North Carolina. Of course, married to Angie Smith, who is in the other lane right now. His father is Ricky Smith, one of the greatest door slammer drag racers of all time. And of course, that's Angie's father-in-law. As Angie Smith rolls up a new motorcycle for Angie this season. Her former pink bike being ridden by teammate John Hall. She's a 3-time winner on the tour from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And her husband sits across the drag strip from her. Matt Smith going to roll in second as Angie sits in the pre-stage beat. The typical routine here for Angie versus Matt, nobody else, is to blow him a kiss across the racetrack.
They can try, but it could backfire.
It's we've seen it happen before. Angie settles herself over the tank of the motorcycle. I don't know about you, but I didn't see any kisses blown anywhere there.
I'm pretty sure Matt remembers what happened last time these two met up.
I think he does, because he left first, and he is going to finish first. Matt Smith goes 673, 202 miles an hour. What did Gage Herrera tell us yesterday? We're going to find out who's playing what deck of cards when they get into race day, and Matt Smith has gone 673, which is the quickest run of the day so far in pro stock motorcycle. Takes care of business against a 681 for Angie. Now let's go down to the top end with Amanda Busick.
Well, I'm sure you've thought about 2,000ths of a second since Pomona of last year. How do you get the right side of this against Greg Anderson this time?
I'm going to have to get the tree on him, and I have to get every last bit of it. He's got a really fast hot rod. They tuned me up pretty good on that one. It was wheels up and felt really, really good against Corey. I knew I was going to have to be good against him. Corey's going to have a really fast hot rod. You're going to see him in the winner's circle before long. But, you know, Rad Torque Systems is still on board with us for the full season. We're ready to go. We're pumped up, and we're going to start this off on the right foot.
As Dallas Glenn walks away, the pit crash is going on right now in the Top Fuel and Funny Car pits. The final rounds are getting prepared, and Antron Brown's team is in the mid-season form we knew they would be coming into Gainesville.
Now it's time for Ace's new yard art.
At the Ambly Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals, we are here getting ready for the final rounds of Eliminations, a race that has been everything and more in terms of performance and craziness. The road to the final now for Ron Capps began with this run against John Smith.
Well, started very strong with the qualifying effort for this Carlisle machine and for Ron Capps. He was very steady, and they've been good. You can see it fluttered a cylinder, misfired a cylinder at the end of the track, and still ran one of the second quickest runs of that first round.
Bobby Bodie and Ron Capps got together in the second round of Eliminations. You saw Bobby Bodie trying to put a nose out there, but then Ron Capps went 395 at 330 miles an hour in those bright green Carlisle Tools colors. The semifinals, he found himself next to Alexis Joria.
Rolled in, squeezed into the throttle a little bit may have upset that car and set off the sequence of clutch timers, but for Ron Capps, this is really their only miss during eliminations. That car spun the tires pretty hard down track, only 280 miles per hour. The scene now in Chad Green's pit area. His team, which has worked relentlessly all day, including a heavy workload going into this final. No major damage, but a very strong 394 traditional workload going into this final. No major damage, but a very strong 392 run. Well, and they've also figured something out, because if they had a motor change earlier from some kind of breakage, they have the same engine. Not only did it run quick, but it can be reused for the final.
Antron Brown's team is doing the final button-up on his top fuel dragster. He has Sean Langdon, and this should be a very good matchup. Langdon's car has been getting quicker each round, but Brown's reaction time's been doing the same thing.
Well, the chess match is going to be with the tuners. I mean, the drivers are going to raise and function at a high frequency for both Antron Brown as well as Sean Langdon, but the conditions are cool. They're probably going to be as good as they've been all day.
And the Coletta Motorsports Coletta Air sponsored Top Fuel Dragster team is working right now. They're trying to go back-to-back with wins here at the Gatornationals. They've already accomplished back-to-back finals, but the true payoff will be a win light when we come back. The final rounds of the Mission Foods NHRA Drag Racing Series will be up, and the crowd here has been stalwart. They have been dedicated, and they have stood the test of time and weather to enjoy some of the finest drag racing we've ever seen in Gainesville.
Get ready to race down the track with Mission Foods. It's a green light for the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series, packed with fast action and tasty products. Fully loaded tacos, fast wraps, piled high nachos. Whatever you crave, Mission will help you be race ready with easy-to-make recipes that will take your race day to the finish line. Keep your racing delicious and enjoy all the mouth-watering action. Brought to you by Mission Foods. Too fast, too tasty.
When I started Walton Goggins goggle glasses, I knew I'd be its favorite.
Gatornationals is sponsored by Mission Foods. Make today delicious with Mission Foods. Now that's too fast, too tasty. And Camping World, America's recreation dealer. What an incredible weekend it has been here at Gainesville Raceway. This event has had more than a half-century of history. We have seen records broken. Some of those records seem to indicate how much rainfall we got over the last couple of days, but we have seen incredible Nhra. We thought for sure he was done for the weekend. His team repaired his car, and then, of course, this morning on Sunday morning, Trip Tatum suffering this terrible crash, sliding his top fuel dragster into the wall and then bouncing across the other one. And through it all have been some of the most incredible fans in the entire NHRA universe. They were with us through the cold weather early in the weekend, battled with us through everything from rain to even a power outage at times today. And as you can see, they filled this cavernous drag strip, and it is now time for the final rounds here, kicking things off with Pro Stock Bike. And there is a problem here for Matt Smith. The bike will not start. In fact, Tony, I believe it did start and then shut off. They are trying to get the body out to make a very, very quick repair.
It did definitely start up and shut itself off. And we've seen this before where Matt Smith has had some electronic issues with this machine.
Sonoma last year comes to mind. Made a final round and had to walk off the starting line in disgust as they refit the seat portion of the body. Gage Herrera, cool as ice as always, that 1,000-yard stare across the racetrack, seemingly relaxed, waiting for his opponent to get his machine started.
Well, look, there's some sportsmanship here. I'm pretty sure these Vance and Hines team, if they have given him the signal to start up, they're well within their rights of starting this machine up. These are good sportsmen. These guys want the smoke.
Get it back in the water.
That says they're good. Clearly, it was something that was very easily plugged back in again. Suzuki on board. Look for Gage as soon as they light off the V-twin. Bruno, what you got? I tapped Angie Smith on the shoulder, asked what happened. She thinks the battery wasn't plugged in all the way. It's just something that simple. It appears so, Bruno, because it is lit and running now.
Everything sounds like it's firing on both cylinders. And for Matt Smith, he has had the better machine for the most part of this entire weekend.
This fall drag strip this morning, wet drag strip the afternoon, hot drag strip and drag strip the afternoon, hot drag strip in the middle of the afternoon, and now we're back under these cloudy skies, so it's going to be the best rubber and the tightest we've seen it all weekend. 672.2 beats a 672.3. This is going to be a long, long season, Tony, if this is what we have to look forward to.
We're going to see these two duke it out many times, but you cannot give up a few hundredths of a second if you're Matt Smith. I'm sure he is going to recognize that. This is one of the things that he's got to work on. He's been so good at in the past. He's racing, a young, eager, have championship winning talent when you come up against Gage Nhra. They cleaned house when he first got on this machine, and it just seemed like they couldn't get beat. Now the competition's caught up. This is where a rider like Gage Nhra can really show his mettle, because he not only is able to ride a good machine, but he's able to be quick off the starting line.
Man, you can see the differential there at the finish line stripe. The 300s advantage on the starting line, the 300s advantage to the 60-foot block, added up to a motorcycle's worth at the finish line stripe. Pro Stock is coming up next, and the final round will be a rematch of the final in Pomona, California. The Rad Torque Systems Camaro of Dallas Glenn. Who, Tony, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of us in the offseason thought that this guy needs to start exactly the way he finished for Dallas Glenn. If he was to stumble early on, I think it would put him, of course, on his back foot. But for Greg Anderson, this guy's playing with house money, right? He's a 6-time champion. He won the last race. He won the championship. Even if he had come out here and kind of laid an egg, it still wouldn't have been raised many eyebrows. But the fact that Greg Anderson is now back in that same position he was in Pomona, to do this again maybe to Dallas is amazing.
And we as well, we wondered, is nature taking its course with Greg Anderson? He's won so many championships, he's accomplished so much. In this sport, we just saw Greg Anderson rise to the occasion. And I think even for a driver of Greg's caliber, I think it even showed himself that he's capable of running with some of these younger guys.
Yeah, the In-N-Out Cup and the Wally, if he pulls it off today, it's a golden gator in the Wally. It's the 5th time in Gator Nationals history the number 1 and 3 Pro Stock drivers have met in the finals. The odds, of course, always, in Pro Stock anyway, with the number 1 qualifier.
Dallas spoke about what exactly he needed to do. He has to execute on the starting line.
Summit Racing equipment on board for Greg Anderson. Pro Stock final. Oh boy, Greg Anderson's car shook the tires. Dallas Glenn will open the season with a win line on the strange side of the drag strip, 6:54.9 at 211 miles an hour. He was one race late.
Maybe the shake was the best thing that happened to Greg Anderson on this run, because he was going to have to make up 300ths of a second. They were almost identical in the previous round, but Dallas Glenn has been pretty much exchanging blows in terms of performance off the line and instantly going into a tire shake. A picture-perfect run for Glenn, 6:54.9, right along where he has been running all afternoon. He ran 6:54.2 in the semifinals for Dallas Glenn. This is going to be career victory number 14 and career final number 30. Yeah, it's hard to see the violence that is taking place with those rear tires on the Greg Anderson machine. Here's on board. Yeah, he recognizes it, he realizes it right away, and for Dallas Glenn, he's taking care of business, getting all those shifts out of the way. He may have taken a glance out of the left side of his car, and there was no one there. That was a great sign.
Let's go to Amanda on the top end, Golden Gator, and he has put himself in the lead for the points. And now he's with Amanda.
Welcome to the top end of Gage Nhra. We're going to wait for his wallet to get delivered. He pulls up to join us down here. And Gage, man, for 2 seasons, it has been the rivalry between Matt Smith and Gage Nhra. How matched is this rivalry now?
Oh, it's really matched. I haven't seen the ticket yet, but I'm guessing I probably got him on the tree a little. He's had a fast hot rod all weekend, so have I. I've had a consistent one. I don't know what I ran there. We threw the special tire on there and basically said we're going to see what happens, and we sent it. And coming home with the win, to start off the season here at Gainesville. Thank you, sir.
Very well.
To start the season off here in Gainesville with the win, it's just a lot of momentum for the whole team. We also got the win down in Matthew got the win on the Junior Cup, so on the road race in Daytona. So this is just an incredible weekend for Vance Hines, Revzilla, Motul, Suzuki. All of them. None of this is possible without them, and I'm very proud. And it's time to celebrate. Woo!
So Gage Nhra has continued to do what he has done for the last couple of years now, begin the season with a victory for Dallas Glenn. This Gainesville victory is big. It doesn't erase the end of last year, but it sets his best foot forward over the course of what will be a long season in 2025. The Rad Torque Systems Camaro is in the winner's circle, and Dallas Glenn is thumbs up and smiles, as well he should be. Let's meet the Pro Stock winner, who's down at the top end with Amanda.
And Emily's going to hand that trophy to Dallas Glenn. And when I talked to you to kick off this weekend, you said that your thoughts have been on that 2,000th of a second in Pomona that you lost the championship to Greg Anderson. How does this help with that disappointment?
This definitely feels good. You know, Greg has always been one of them that's always just had my number. He keeps getting me, even though he's an old guy, he's still got it. He's got a really good hot rod, and you know, they definitely stepped it up for me today. You know, we had a good qualifying run, but we struggled early on, and you know, it was flying out there. It barely made it down on that one, but you know what? We got the win. Rad Torque Systems, Summit Racing, DPF Parts Direct, Bell Helmets, everybody. My wife, SR Driven Media, is here. Got the whole crew right here. Yes, this is payback.
And a guy who's looking for some of that is burning his tires on the starting line now. That is Sean Langdon, who was across the racetrack from Antron Brawn. Perhaps there's a part of Sean that feels like Antron took a championship he should have had in his own hands last year. A championship run that kind of turned on a dime in one fell swoop in the semifinal round of Las Vegas. But we look at these two drivers, among the best that have ever done it. 80 career victories for Antron Brawn, 64 of them coming in Top Fuel. Sean Langdon, 17 Top Fuel wins, 2 in a Nitro Funny Car, plus national event wins in Super Comp, where he's a two-time national champion. Which way are you going here, Tony? Do we go with Antron, who has been quicker on the lights all day, or do we go with Sean, who has the same ability as Antron, but seems to have the quicker car?
Well, it's a great matchup. If this were Mortal Kombat, we'd see strengths from one
I knew you were going there,
and not the other, right? That's the way you see things. And, I mean, neither performed very well in the first round, good enough to advance. It was Antron that was quicker in the second round. It was Langdon that picked up the pace in the semifinals, so it's going to be a great matchup.
The flames snap high right off the starting line. Finish line stripe. It is going to be Antron Brawn. Brawn runs 367.3. Low ET in the race. Just shy of 334 miles an hour. Beat Langdon's 368.4. A great Top Fuel final.
Yeah, that might have been Jerome right there for Antron Brawn. I mean, both of them high level off of the starting line. Picked the pace up. A 368. If you didn't know any better, you'd look in that left lane and say, this has to be Langdon. But this is one of the things that Antron, that team has worked on over the offseason. They won a championship. There's nothing better than that, but they realized that they couldn't go quite as quick as some of the other cars. They weren't as quick as Steve Torrance. They weren't as quick as some of these Coletta cars. Definitely not as quick as Brittany. They knew they needed to pick the pace up, and for these reasons, they could get to a final round when the conditions are cooler and performed in this manner.
A classic final. Both cars underneath low ET of the meet. Bruno's with Brian Karate.
You know, Brian, I feel like Brian Karate and I just did this a couple months ago, standing in a similar spot in Pomona, looking at the scoreboard, seeing that you went low for the weekend in the final. Now, you lost Mark Oswald. You know, he stepped away and retired. Did that give you any doubt going into the season that you might be a little of a man down?
You know what? We miss him, period. Because there's a lot that he did that we forgot about because he does it. He just did it. Oh, we got to do that. But, no, we miss him. But Mark, when I started racing with Mark is when I started winning. Mark taught me how to win. I'm not going to cry on TV. But, hey, nothing better than beating AJ and Langdon. And Brian. Brian's probably like, hey, give me some credit on that. Brian's about, you know what? We always come up here loaded to race these guys. They're the best. We want to beat the best. Even though we won the championship, they won the championship the year before, and they're always fast. And maybe Tony will leave me alone for a week or two.
If you're talking about me, only for a week or two. But, you know, that's a classic Gainesville final round. You know, we've seen some great moments right now.
Yes.
That kind of performance with the drivers and the cars lived up to the expectations of this event.
As good as it gets. Picturesque, fast, and Amanda Music is with Antron Brawn.
I hope you guys can hear this up here because Antron Brawn has been screaming, that was a race. Sean Langdon come over and said, well done, Jerome. AB, you told us you've been racing in alter egos today. You just pulled out a 36 light against Sean Langdon. How did today challenge your talents?
You got to put it up there. These drivers are incredible this year, Amanda, and all these teams are doing the homework and won that championship. And hats off to the team because you know what? kept on digging deep, getting better, and we knew that's a monster house over there. Lang is no joke driving, but Jerome's in the house. I'm just joking with it. But we have a lot of fun, but being here at the Gator Nationals, start the year off like this is a true blessing. All the praise and glory goes to God, but a team, I'm part of this team that's incredible. Brian, Brad, Auburn, Matco, Lucas Oil, Toyota, Hanksford boys, great job. Hey, how about that? Gator time, woo!
And this is the Nitro Funny Car Final. Did we run them out of order? Well, yeah, because what else has gone normally today? The answer is nothing. So this is why you're seeing the funny cars after the dragsters. Chad Green, the last round they came up here and thumped Matt Hagan with a 392. On the opposite side of the racetrack, they have put the Carlisle Toyota. They came into this run with lane choice. We saw it part of the day that it might have mattered. Doesn't matter anymore.
Well, you put them on alert. I mean, there's no way you can ignore that kind of performance and how they did it, the manner they did it in. So if you ask me, this Napa team, Carlisle car has to adjust accordingly. And especially seeing the performance of those top fuel cars directly in front of them. If there was any question, if the racetrack is there, that shouldn't be raced any of that doubt.
Thunderstorms swirling in the distance around Gainesville Raceway. It has been a race against time, a race against each other, and a race against Mother Nature. One of the most topsy-turvy and epic runnings of the Gator Nationals in this facility's history. The Funny Car Final is up. It's going to be Chad Green for the second time in his career. Chad Green wins the Gator Nationals. Unbelievable. This is career fifth final round, his second victory. Dean Marinas, Joe Serena. Unreal.
Well, there you have a group of guys that work well together. There is no fear. They had nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. And they made all the right moves.
Yes.
And that's a great story.
392 won, 329. Bruno Massel's in the scrum.
Few people are happier than Dean Marinas right now, and for good reason. Back-to-back 392s. You guys had a heck of a day in terms of putting the work in. What does this mean to you right now to stand here and do this interview?
It's incredible. I mean, I've been working my whole life for this, and to be racing at this level and win, just me and Joe, take over the team. We got our own shop and put another team together. It's been crazy. Looking forward to this season.
For Dean Marinas, this is a guy who has succeeded at every level of drag racing. He's been a small tire racer, a nitrous tuner. For Chad Green, this guy from Midland, Texas, invested this year. They added the second team. What a story.
And Jay, Chad Green has come into this funny car category and earned the respect, and not just because of this final round, but very well deserved. You can see Brock Capps losing traction, but they did everything right in that right lane, left side of your screen.
The man from Midland, Texas, Chad Green, is with Amanda Busick.
Wow.
And in Chad Green's second career win in Funny Car, not only is he going to get the Wally presented to him by Amalie Motor, he's going to go home with that sweet Gator trophy as well. And Chad, you're going to want to go back and look at the film of your run because your team absolutely lost their mind at the end of that. Dean Marinas just said on the big screen that this is a dream that he's been racing for his whole life. Woo! How does this just add to your story, Chad?
This is a dream for me, too. I mean, to win here at the Gator Nationals, I can't believe I'm a Gator Nationals winner. It's just so awesome. I actually drove my first ever legal race car down the track here at this track. This track means so much to me, and, well, I can't believe I get both of these. No, I can't. I'm so proud of my team. Let me tell you, we thrashed. We didn't do good at qualifying.
Yeah, baby.
Car came around at the right time. We have both our teams, our new team over working on the car too. Just couldn't be more proud of these guys. And we had some new sponsors with us here this weekend. Tony, Charles from Drive, and our Logan Industries over there, Scott. So it couldn't be better. Thanks, guys.
If you were a Play NHRA participant and you bet on Chad Green this morning, he was plus 2,200 on the odds. That paid back well. This week's mission, that's a wrap. We got Gators, we got racers, and we had action all weekend long. Coming up next, we're going to Arizona, Sunday, March 23rd, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Watch the finals. Thank you to Amanda, Tony, and Bruno. I'm Brian Lones, and I'll see you from the desert.